What's up, gamers? Welcome to another edition of the Short Pause Gaming Podcast. This is episode number 162. And by 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we mean 11:14 p.m. Eastern Time. Some small technical difficulties going on behind the scenes. We weren't able to get Bender on his PC, so he's live from his phone. He's able to be here. So, of course, we go live, and all of a sudden nothing works. So, go figure. But, gentlemen, I'm joined, obviously, by Ben Boyce, Bender Holt, Frankie Ayler, and as we mentioned, this is our first live episode of the Short Pause Gaming Podcast. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, man.
Good.
Good?
I've been better, but good.
Well, we're just glad you can make it, dude. And like I said, we apologize. Next week, we will have Bender on his PC with his microphone. You can still hear him pretty good, but he is using his phone for the remainder of the show. But we're just glad he's able to be here. Now, you're probably wondering why you guys going to a live show, and it's pretty simple. Just makes things easier. When it comes to editing a podcast, it can take up a whole day on Sunday. Boyce has to use up his entire Saturday to write an outline, and then I spend Sunday editing the outline, and Bender and Frankie are up until 3 o'clock, and so they're zombies on Sunday. So the whole thing is just going to be a lot easier if we do a live format. Plus, it allows us to interact with our audience. Obviously, JD's in the chat already. He's starting doing what he does, so... but that's why we're going to go through a live podcast. We're going to continue to do a live podcast going forward. We will still have an audio version. We'll just pull the audio off this. Actually, we're going to pull the audio off this one, but after this, we will have our microphones. We'll have the high-quality audio you would expect when you listen on any your podcast service of choice. So we will still have that, and obviously this video will still be archived on our YouTube pages, our Twitch page, our Mixer page, and Facebook, so you'll be able to catch the podcast even if you're not able to make it live. But, gentlemen, we got a lot to talk about tonight. E3 week has wrapped up. We actually covered a lot of the press conferences earlier this week. We watched the conferences live. We also did reaction videos to the ones we weren't able to catch live. So make sure you tune into our YouTube channel. You'll find all those videos archived. We did the Sony show live, the Microsoft show live, the Bethesda show live, and then we did reaction videos to the remaining shows. So check all that out. Tonight's show, we will focus on some of the stories that happened outside of the press conferences, touch up on a couple things. Then we're going to break down our top 10 favorite games of E3 that we saw. And then lastly, we will discuss who won the prediction segment from last week. Spoiler alert, it's not me again. Awesome. So, first thing we're going to talk about, there was a lot of news that came out last week, but the one thing we want to talk about first, because we all found it very interesting, and it was a theme that kind of carried on throughout the week at E3, especially at the press conferences, but the first thing we want to talk about is next-gen talk. Now, we knew coming into E3, Sony had made it apparent right away. They're like, we're not talking about hardware. We're not showing anything. So that kind of set the precedent. We weren't sure, are we going to see anything next gen? And obviously we didn't see anything, but we did get some tidbits, and it started off at the Microsoft press conference. Okay, so Microsoft Phil Spencer at the Microsoft press conference had this to say. This was towards the end of the show, and he said this: the same team that delivered unprecedented performance with Xbox One is deep into architecting the next Xbox consoles, where we will once again deliver on our commitment to set the benchmark for console gaming. So right there, first thing we hear from Phil Spencer, he acknowledges the next consoles, not just console, the next Xbox consoles are in development. Then we'll jump ahead to the Bethesda show, where Todd Howard was talking about Starfield and The Elder Scrolls 6. And here's what he had to say. Quote from Todd Howard. We have also been working on a brand new next-generation single-player game, but this one is of an all-new epic franchise, our first wholly original franchise in 25 years. And then they introduced Starfield, but he said next generation. Now, it's worth noting next generation doesn't necessarily mean new hardware. But it could mean the engine that this game will run on could be next gen, because obviously everyone's talked about Bethesda games, their Fallout engine. The games have always been very buggy, so next gen could mean their next engine that they're trying to build for their games going forward. But Boyce, I want to come to you first. We're going to talk about the Microsoft portion of it. What's your take from this? Do you think this is, do you think the Xbox One is close, or do you think this was part of the overall message that we discussed, that this is more or less for Microsoft to kind of reaffirm to its fans, look, we will have another console. There will be more Xboxes going forward.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Like we talked about on the Microsoft Reaction Show, part of it is reassuring the Xbox fan base that look, we're committed to consoles, we're committed to this form of gaming and this branch of our business, and we're in this for the long haul. We're going to be out here. We're going to be making consoles for many years to come, and just the fact that he said consoles plural. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that they're thinking about here, and with many people assuming that this means some type of a family of consoles. When we see the next Xbox, or have something similar to what we have with the One S and the One X right now, we have this kind of family of consoles, each marketed to a different fan base. So I definitely think that that's something that they could look to move forward with into their next console as well. And the other side of that is yeah, we are getting close to the next generation. I don't think there's any question that by 2020 we are going to see the next Xbox and the PlayStation 5, and we're going to be out there purchasing those things. So basically we're with sometime within the next 2 years, the next generation is going to be here. You just see people start to talk about it more and more now. It's only a matter of time before one of these guys gets the big scoop and we learn all the leaked details about whatever the next console is for either one of these guys. So we're already excuse me, we're already starting to see little stories coming out here and there about these different consoles. So we're getting into the swing of things, man. I mean, we could be in a situation where we see a console announced next year. Like that's how close we are. We could be right on the precipice of an actual next gen console announcement. So, yeah, I just think it's a combination of both of those, Brent. They're reassuring their fans that they're in this for the long haul, and they're letting them know, like, you've heard about the PlayStation 5 and stuff. Well, we got our next one coming too. So be on the lookout for that.
Frankie, what's your take on these comments made by Phil Spencer and Todd Howard? I mean, are these things a ways off, or do you think this is now the official start? We'll start, like Ben mentioned, we'll start hearing more information from sources about these new consoles.
I want to go ahead and say that these have to have been in development for a while now. I'm willing to bet that when Microsoft was starting to spec out, the Scorpio, they're also looking ahead, like, okay, look, like, what should we put in this thing that would make sense to have another console a couple years later? Because realistically, this generation is probably, not going to have much life in it after the X. So, knowing Microsoft is, already in the process of, speccing out, or honestly, we don't even know how far along they are with all this right now. But, knowing that these guys are, Sony's been out there, making comments, hinting at a PlayStation 5. Microsoft is not going to let Sony, come out of the gate first again. And, I think Microsoft is trying to pace themselves so it doesn't feel like the next Xbox is getting rushed out to compete with the PlayStation 5.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, Ben, I want to ask you, obviously, you picked up an Xbox One S recently. You have the system. When you hear Phil Spencer talking about this sort of thing, he just mentioned that the next Xbox is in development. How does that make you feel? Or do you think this thing's a ways off? Or do you like hearing from Phil Spencer saying, look, we're in this for the long haul. We do have new systems coming.
It's always nice to hear that they're working on the next thing. And I'm sure, publishers and I'm sure the companies that make these pieces of hardware are always at least thinking about the next thing, if not already actively working on it. So it doesn't surprise me to hear them talk about what's next for Xbox and PlayStation. And I don't have a problem with it either. I mean, even though they just came out with the Xbox One S not long ago, the Scorpio, I feel like it's probably going to be at least a couple years off, like Ben was saying, maybe by 2020 or 2021, somewhere around there. I could definitely see these things coming out, but I think that's a sufficient amount of time that will have passed by then.
And before we get into the comments that Phil Spencer made, why we believe he was making those comments, he actually wanted to detail about it. But the other thing we do know right now is, and again, these are rumors, but they mentioned it at the press conference, and then shortly after, like a couple days later, then the news starts leaking out. Like these things like we heard about Scarlet. Thurrott was the first to report this news, referring to the next generation of Xbox hardware as a series of devices. Code-named Scarlet. And then Game Informer followed up with their own report, writing that numerous sources of its own had confirmed the Scarlet code name. So now we have a code name for this device, and it's a series of devices according to these sources. So, I mean, we've got a code name now, and we know what happens with code names. This is when things really get going. The same happened with the Pro and with the X. We had code names. We had the Scorpio. What was the Pro? What was the Pro's code name? Something with Vita. It was like, because I remember it was like something.
It was Neo.
Neo. There you go.
Neo.
Yep.
Neo. Yeah.
Yep. So we had Neo and we had Scorpio. So we have all this information now. We know Scarlet exists, and it's a series of devices. Boys, when they say series of devices, do you think they're looking at going with a Switch type of approach, or do you think maybe are they going to launch with like an Xbox 2 and then an Xbox 2X? Like, do you think they'll have two SKUs? What do you think they want to do when they have a series of devices?
Yeah, I think that's what they're looking at. I mean, there's a couple of different possibilities here. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form they're looking at a Switch kind of device. That's completely off the table for Microsoft. I think what they are looking at here, though, is a new family of consoles similar to what they have now. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to release this family of consoles all at once.
Right.
Like the current console market, or the console like world that we live in right now, is one where we're going to see these upgraded consoles, like the mid-generational refresh. Like, this is a thing that I don't think is going anywhere. I think this is something that has proven successful for Microsoft and Sony at the very least in getting their fans to purchase an additional console within the console cycle. So I don't think this is going anywhere. And when they say family of devices, they'll probably have a core, Scarlet or whatever they're going to call this when it comes out at launch. But eventually down the line, like, they're looking at how this thing can be modular, like how they can come out with that mid-generational refresh in the future, how they can eventually create this system they have now where they have an Xbox One, an Xbox One S, and an Xbox One X that speaks to different parts of the market. Like, I think that's something that they want to continue to do. It's something that it's just how technology works. It's the same thing in the cell phone market. Like, there's different phones that are aimed at different consumers, and they want to have that flexibility in the console market as well. So when they say family of devices, the way I'm taking it is just exactly the way that it's set up right now, where they have different devices aimed at different parts of the market.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now the other part we want to talk about is the stuff that Phil Spencer had to say at E3. I felt this was really important because there was a lot of discussion this last year about, is Microsoft trying to get away from hardware? Are they trying to just focus on publishing games? And there was a lot of like speculation and a lot of negative talk in that regard. But I love the way that Phil Spencer went out and not only mentioned that there's new Xboxes in development, but he reassured the fans Xbox is in this for the long haul. Consoles belong in the living room. People love consoles, and they support that. Here's what Phil Spencer had to say. We think people playing great console games is critical to our success. It is how most people think of an Xbox. An Xbox is something you plug into your TV. It's the world's most powerful console. He likes saying that. And you get to play games on your television. I want that to continue. And I don't want that to just continue in words. I want it to continue in action. In the last 2 years, we've shipped the S console, which I love, and the X console, which we said we're going to do it. And I love the fact that we're able to deliver that. Why other people might not want to say, hey, there could actually be another console, when we all know there likely is because it's, hey, I need to keep people buying the console that's there. When people buy an Xbox, they buy into an ecosystem and they become an Xbox fan. Many of the Xbox fans we have today started on the original Xbox, were with us on the 360, and they're with us now on the Xbox One. I trust their commitment to our devices and our services, and we go through this journey with them. So I'm going to be open with them. I don't have anything to announce specifically, but I do want people to know that we're committed to the experience they love of playing games on a console and their television, and we think that it's an important part of the future for our brand. So, Frankie, when you hear Phil saying that, do you think he's taking this head on? He's getting in front of this strange opinion that Xbox is going away. Do you like the way that Phil handled that portion of it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, the internet, you can find anything on the internet about, Xbox done, Xbox, Xbox is doomed. And I think what we saw from them at E3, the fact that they're expanding their studio portfolio, and we saw a couple high quality Japanese titles coming to the system, in Nier Automata and Kingdom Hearts. So I think if anything, I think Phil is doubling down, like, hey, no, like we're here, we're gonna be around for a long time to come. I can't imagine you're gonna just have 5 new studios just to be like, well, I don't know. It's been fun, but I guess we'll just kind of go the Sega route and only start publishing games. I don't see that happening at all. You don't put out the world's most powerful console just to go by the wayside shortly after, just because you're like, well, we could just be like Sega. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I wanted to mention, I know we're going to be talking a little bit more about this in a little bit, but you mentioned before the multiple SKUs,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, and the thing that I gathered a lot from E3, just from like kind of side talks and whatnot where we read, but like this idea of an all digital future, is obviously on the cards. So I wouldn't be surprised if, when they launch the next system, you see a multiple SKU thing. You have one that has your disk drive, and then you have your one that doesn't. I could see next gen being the one where Microsoft finally says, you want to stream your games, download your games, whatever. Don't want to do physical media. Here's this other option for you, and that'll probably be the cheaper one, because UHD Blu-ray players, to my understanding, aren't cheap. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to probably be a pretty good option for people like myself who, I've already gone digital on Xbox and don't want to worry about a disk drive for it.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that, because Phil Spencer also addressed the streaming portion of things. He said that the company's cloud engineers are working to bring console quality games streaming to any device. Obviously, Microsoft already has, their in-home game streaming with its Xbox console and the Xbox app on PC, and the streaming service is a natural extension of that experience. And then, of course, we had stuff also this week where EA announced that they're pushing towards streamed gaming at its E3 press conference. And then Microsoft, obviously Phil Spencer talked about this, but then, of course, Ubisoft CEO Yves Guillemot, he had this today: streaming will become more accessible to many players and make it not necessary to have big hardware at home. So, I mean, even Eves is on board. He thinks, hey, look, this is the future of streaming games. Now, I want to get your guys' thoughts on streaming games. Ben, I want to start with you. Obviously, when you pop in a disc or if you pop in a cartridge in the Switch, you're playing the game natively, and you don't have to worry about, internet lag or anything like that to cause pixelation or even the game to, not show up on the screen. What's your thoughts, man? I mean, you hear some bigwigs here talking about streaming services the future. Do you like the idea of streaming service? I mean, how close do you think we are to really perfecting that? I mean, so much depends on your internet connection when it comes to streaming. What's your thoughts on that, dude?
I'm not sure if we're quite there to where we can do that exclusively, because there's still people in some parts of the country who don't have great internet, so they're going to be completely hosed if they're trying to play games and they don't have any internet connection. I don't know. I've never really tried any of these streaming services to try to stream a game, but I just gotta imagine that some people just aren't gonna be able to do it very well. So it just seems like we might not be to that point yet.
Boys, have you tried PlayStation Now or any kind of streaming service?
I have not.
But what's your thoughts of us heading in that direction?
I mean, like Bender said, I understand, like that's where these companies want to go. Like, it's logical, like that it seems like where the entirety of the consumable media space is moving towards some type of a streaming service. So it's natural that the video game industry would want to move towards that and try to take advantage of that as well. But I just don't think we're close, man. I mean, video games are unique in the fact that they take into account things like input lag and the experience changes drastically with just a millisecond of lag can completely throw off your gaming experience. Like, think about the fighting game community. Like, how quick are the Street Fighter players going to be willing to jump into a streaming service that might not be 100% accurate in terms of its lag? And we're nowhere near the point where they can completely eliminate input lag via a streaming service. And like Bender mentioned, like there's parts of the country that don't have great internet, and there's tons of places that don't have great internet. So, I mean, we're talking about a streaming service coming out at some point in the future that if it were to come out sometime in the near future, it would be marketed to like the 1%. to the very, very small minority of people that could take advantage of this and use it to its fullest potential. Like I said, I understand like that's where these companies want to go, and it's a great opportunity to have a Netflix type of service for gamers. But I can stream a movie and Netflix can buffer for a few seconds and get the image caught up to where I need to be. But I can't have that happen when I'm playing a game. Like I can't wait for this thing to catch up to me or wait for the lag to catch up. Like it doesn't work for gaming. So I get that this could be the future, but I just from what I've seen, I don't see us anywhere near this being a viable option for like the serious gamer.
Now, one thing that they talk about, in terms of why streaming is appealing to some of these big publishers is because that could mean cheaper hardware. You don't have to worry about having the next best GPU or a powerful CPU. You can just go with the basic bare bones and let the internet and downloading and streaming handle all the rest of the work. Frankie, I know you're a big fan of your physical stuff. What's your thoughts on that, man? Would you rather have a cheaper console and stream if your internet's up to snuff, or would you rather pay the extra, so everything is built into the system, you don't have to rely on streaming? What's your thoughts on that, dude?
So for me right now, this is the perfect time to talk about this for me. I cannot get my Xbox to connect to the damn Wi-Fi network, and it's pissing me off. In the process of this, all the games I have downloaded, I can't launch a single game. I can't. So you're telling me that if my internet goes down, I have no access to my games at all. That pisses me off, first of all. But also, it's such a grander picture in America, just because you have data caps, you have companies that are going to throttle your speeds, and we have the whole net neutrality thing that's still up in limbo, and just there's so many other factors in play right now that like there's just things that seem like it's slowing us even reaching a point where we're going to have internet capable of streaming games. And even where we're going with games, we're hitting that 4K, the Ultra HD stuff. Games are nearing like how many gigs is like Gears of War, like 120? Like, could you imagine trying to stream something like that? And just like even all around the country, like even where I'm at now, like we have okay internet, but we don't have FiOS or any kind of really good gigabit internet options out here. And we're not, what I mean? Like I don't live in the middle of nowhere. We live in like a bigger city in Ohio, so I worry that just because of a lot of the politics around it, it's going to, in a lot of ways, I feel like the gaming market is kind of going to end up being ahead of where it needs to be when, they're trying to make this jump.
And
which is why I will always love physical media.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And like that's another thing that concerns me. It's like, okay, I'm streaming a game that's running at 4K. That takes up a lot of bandwidth. Okay, it takes a lot to run that. So now I'm streaming Destiny 3 in 4K with HDR, and I'm trying to play online. I'm just concerned about all that bandwidth going to play a game online as you're streaming it, and I'm concerned, dude. That I've tried about PlayStation Now, and I had a pretty good internet connection at the time. I had like I think 50 or 60 down when I tried using it, and even then, it was still pixelated in some spots. It wasn't 100% responsive, and you absolutely have to have that. Like you mentioned in fighting games or first-person shooters or Twitch shooters like Call of Duty, you have to have precision. It has to be right there, no lag, no nothing. That's why I'm just so concerned about streaming games, especially online games. I mean, that just seems like that would tax your system and your internet big time.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I actually, when PlayStation Now was coming out, I was in the beta for it, so I did try out a lot of games on that service. And dude, if I had to play, one of the ones I remember distinctly playing was Sniper Ghost Warrior 2. Already not a good game in and of itself, but streaming it, the input lag, dude, I would never ever play games again if that were my life.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just say there's another aspect to this too, Brent, and that's like the there's a legitimate concern with people like having access to their games, like Frankie mentioned, like if his internet goes down, like he can't access his games. Like there's people that the whole reason they buy physical games so that they have some type of an ownership over these games. Like there's a legitimate concern that one day somebody could flip the switch and the server could be shut down on your game and you want to have access to it, or the streaming service you use could go down. You don't have access to any of those games on there. Like what happens to your save files? Like all this kind of stuff is legitimate concerns that I don't think we have any real like long-term answers to. as well. So, if a service goes down, like what happens to all those games that are on there? Like what happens to, like, how do we get those games from our past again? Like it's already difficult to bring games through the generation, which is why I appreciate what Microsoft is doing with their backwards compatibility program. Like they're trying to keep their lineup viable throughout the console generations. And that's always been one of the cool things about PC gaming. You have access to the entire catalog of games that are available on PC. So there's already an issue with trying to keep these legacy titles in the rotation now. That's why you see people like clamoring for these old Nintendo games because it's hard to play those. That's why we want things like the Virtual Console. So if you have a streaming service, like how does all that stuff factor in? I think it's something that's got to be thought about as well.
And I wonder if that's like when they talk about, like when Xbox especially mentions that they have multiple devices in development. Do you think maybe they'll have one that's more expensive that is built for like GPU and CPU and that you can play the games natively right there on your system? And then maybe the other device is the streaming one, the streaming box or a download only box or something along those lines. Do you think that may be something they're looking into?
It could be. It's something that Frankie mentioned. Having a system with a drive and a system without a drive, and people being able to download things on there. I don't know that they would offer a box that just does streaming. Like I said, I don't think we're ready or at that point yet. But I could see something like Frankie said, like maybe they offer a box without a disk drive.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And then, of course, Xbox gave us a bunch of information. We had little tidbits from Todd Howard. And then a story came out earlier this week about the tech behind the PlayStation 5. This is obviously a rumor, but it was reported by Forbes, and this is what they had to say. Speaking to industry sources this week under conditions of anonymity, Forbes learned that the PS5 will use both AMD Zen and Navi graphics architectures. What isn't clear is whether the PS5 will incorporate a beefy system on a chip or use separate Ryzen and Navi-based components. According to sources, Navi isn't just inside the PS5, it was created for Sony. Which is interesting because typically these are just like, modded versions of existing hardware. This stuff they're saying is created for Sony. AMD made this specifically for Sony, which is very different from what they've done in the past.
Yeah, this is interesting for a number of reasons, Brent. I don't know all the ins and outs of the silicone industry and how this all works, between the manufacturers and the console makers, but to have AMD working on a chip specifically designed for Sony, like maybe even working with Sony to make this for the PlayStation, seems like a big deal. Like they are going to have a custom chip that was created only for them by AMD, and some of the news surrounding this story are there's some crazy stuff in here. Like at one point, AMD may have taken 2/3 of their force and just focused them on the Navi GPU, even putting aside like the Vega GPU, which they were working on, and that may have suffered in the process. So there's all these rumors and stories that are associated with that. And also Microsoft uses AMD as well to make their stuff for their Xbox console. So does this now mean we're going to have a completely different chip for the for the next Xbox as well? So there's going to be some distinct architecture differences between the next Xbox and the PlayStation 5, which could be interesting from a multi-platform and from a first-party perspective. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff here, and this is what we're talking about. It's the tip of the iceberg in terms of these stories starting to roll out here. So it's only a matter of time before the floodgates open, and every week we're seeing something about some manufacturer or Foxconn is leaking what their development house looks like for the PS5 or something crazy like that. But I think this is interesting. I don't have the tech knowledge to really like properly assess everything that's in this story because there's a lot in this, based around a couple different sources from like CCF Tech. I don't know how to say their website, but that tech website between Forbes, between Eurogamer, there's a lot of stuff floating here between those different outlets. But yeah, it's interesting to read about this stuff nonetheless.
So based on all these rumors that have come out this week, there's been other rumors suggesting, throughout said that Microsoft is targeting 2020 for their next Xbox devices. Based on this stuff, you guys, I mean, what do you think? Do you think 2020, that's going to be the year we're going to see both the PlayStation 5 and I'm just going to call it the Xbox 2? But I mean, based on this information, Frankie, do you think this pretty much like almost solidifies that we can expect to see these systems by 2020? The question is, which one are we going to see first in 2019? Who's going to be the first to unveil?
Yeah, we've talked about this several times before, but I think now more than ever, coming out of this year's E3, 2020 is an extremely safe bet for the next generation of consoles.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt in my mind going forward that that's where we're going to be. As far as who's going to be out the gate first, that's a good question. I suppose it depends on I'm just going to say Sony, actually, the more I'm thinking about this, just because we kind of have an idea of where Microsoft is. Like they're very open about where we're at in development on things most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out there now, kind of starting to talk about it. But I could see Sony at some point, either E3 next year or sometime next year, around when we get a date for Death Stranding, probably.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we'll start hearing more about the PlayStation 5.
Boys, what do you think, man? You think we'll hear it next year, or do you think they'll follow the same pattern that they did with the PlayStation 4? We'll get some kind of a rumor, or we'll see press invites going out in December for a February event, or do you think we could see it sooner next year, or like at least just an announcement of it?
I'm not sure. I think there's no question that 2020 is the latest. I think we'll see these systems come out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the stuff like Phil's talking about it. It's in motion. Sean Layden came out before E3 and was like, we're not talking about the next PlayStation. Like, these guys know that this stuff is imminent and they're talking about it right now openly. And just the fact that Sony is basically put a cap on showing like any more of what their first parties are working on.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can't go through 2 more E3s and not have any new first party stuff to show us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have to be eminent with the launch, with at least the acknowledgement of a PlayStation 5 and starting to build up the hype for it. So just by that, man, I feel like next year we might start to see this stuff getting announced, and like I know that there's a ton of big games on the horizon, especially from Sony's first party. Like, they have a lot of stuff in the pipeline that they've got to release over the next couple of years, probably prior to the release of a PlayStation 5. But do we come into E3 next year and they have nothing first party to show us again? I just don't buy that happening again.
Mm-hmm.
So 2019 we're gonna see one of these consoles announced, and then 2020 is definitely a safe bet. That's the latest we'll see these things released. So we are getting close.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we'll see, like, next year E3? I'm gonna go ahead and assume Last of Us, the Ghost of Tsushima, and Death Stranding probably going to save dates for next year. That'll be how they start E3, and then the back half of E3 announce the PlayStation 5, and then we'll see what all these other studios have been working on. Because obviously, whatever Guerrilla's up to next, that's going to be a next-gen title. I don't see them doing another Horizon game this gen, but I think that's probably what we're going to see them do next year.
I think it's a possibility, definitely. I know that they like to reserve their hardware announcements for their own special conference. So if that is the plan, like, maybe we see something a little bit earlier in the year where they at least debut the idea of a PlayStation 5 to us, and maybe they dig into it a little bit deeper, like you mentioned at that E3. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how it works, because the way they played it with the PlayStation 4, I think, worked so perfectly. They had that conference early in February, unveiled everything in what I thought was a really good presentation, and then they hit us up with more information at E3, and then they released the thing in November, and it was or September, whenever it came out, and it was a smash hit. So I just think that they have to look at the way they did that before, and probably they want to try and mimic that again with the PlayStation 5. So if that's the case, maybe we don't see a full-on reveal till 2020. But then I just start to think again, like, what are they going to show us at E3 next year? So that's what's really got me thinking. Like, over the next year, I feel like there's a very good chance that they unveil whatever the PlayStation 5 is to us.
Yeah, the other thing that keeps hopping in my mind is Nintendo dropped the Switch in March. Like, we're used to seeing console launches in the fall. Like, I wouldn't at all be surprised, honestly, at this point, if, like I said, next year that's what Sony does for E3, and we see a PlayStation 5 in late February, early March. I honestly wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and there's also I don't think there's any question that these next consoles are probably going to be backwards compatible based on the architecture that they were created on. So it would almost even for like the end of the PlayStation 4's life cycle, like they could easily release a PlayStation 5 and be like, hey, you can still play these games on here. Like you're still gonna have even if you're holding out for these games. If you want to purchase a PlayStation 5, like you'll still have access to this stuff on the new console. So that could be a thing. I know that's kind of a slippery slope trying to get people to buy a new console based on stuff that's coming to the old one. But
Mhm.
we could see a Breath of the Wild type of situation with a couple of those games where it's coming out on multiple consoles or available. I don't think there's any question that Xbox will be backwards compatible. I mean, clearly they've set the precedent for that. So. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff at work here.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Well, yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, this I think is just the beginning. Like we've heard some, we've heard some big people talking about next gen. Ever so subtle. They have, nothing big, but they've acknowledged that it does exist. They acknowledge that new hardware is coming. And I think you guys are right. I think 2020 we're headed for a big release of the PS5 and the Xbox 2. How close they are, we're not sure, but should be very, very interesting over the next couple months and the next year ahead. How they're going to show their cards and who's going to do it first. It's gonna be fun. I mean, can you guys believe, seriously, we're coming up on, what is it now? It's gonna be, we're at
5 years.
5 years.
Yep.
5 years. That is that's this is going by quick, dude. It's
going by very,
real quick.
very quick.
So a lot of good stuff out of E3 regarding next gen. Even though there wasn't a whole lot there, it was just easy to kind of extrapolate little bits of information from it and kind of form an idea of what they were trying to do, what their plans may be. But the next thing we're going to talk about, and I know this is something that we're all going to be very passionate about. This is going to be a pretty interesting discussion. But we saw at E3, we saw Destiny 2, Forsaken. We got a breakdown of what that's going to entail. We've got a major information drop on The Division 2. And then, of course, we had a big reveal at it was probably the only decent reveal at EA's press conference, but we got to see Anthem. So now we see all these different games. We see, these are all games that are very similar. They're games as a service. They're games you play online that are constantly changing over time. But boys, let's talk about this, man. Is there enough room for Destiny 2, Anthem, and The Division 2? And basically, focus on the fact that Forsaken launches in September. We're going to have Anthem in February and The Division 2 on March 15th. So in a matter of 4 months, basically Destiny 2 is going to be re-releasing. It's going to be changing completely. It's going to be a totally different game. And, based on what we heard out of E3, it's a drastically improved game with Gambit being a highlight mode that a lot of people love. And and we know that Destiny 2 or The Division 2 is changing greatly, adding some features that people have been just clamoring for. And then Anthem is just kind of like the one that's out there. We're not really sure what to make of it yet, but let's talk about this, man. Boys, kind of guide us through this discussion. Do you think there's enough room for these three games?
The short answer is no. These are games it's like a full-time job to play any one of these games, more than likely. I mean, I haven't played Anthem yet, but I've played the Division 1. I know what kind of a time sink that game is. I've been playing Destiny for the past 4 years. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours later, I know what kind of time that game demands. And then Anthem, obviously, I'm assuming that game is going to consume a similar amount of time, as it's a similar kind of game. So, to answer your question, Brent, no, there's definitely not enough time for one single individual to put the proper time into all three of these games. So what it comes down to for me is Anthem and The Division have to do something to pull me off of Destiny. Like, that's what they're going to have to do. Mm-hmm. Destiny is a game I've invested 4 years into. We're coming up on Forsaken. This is the start of year 2 of Destiny 2. It's going to be very similar to the Taken King in the way it just kind of reinvents the entire game of Destiny 2 that we know today. And it's got tons of new stuff coming, new stories, new raids, and there's new content drops that are planned for that game as well. By the time we get to the Anthem in the Division 2, we're going to be 1 or 2 content drops deep into Forsaken as well. So we're going to have new DLC that's out for that. So I know what Destiny is going to offer me. It's going to offer me first-in-class gameplay. It's going to offer me some of the best cooperative activities out there. And it's something that I really, really enjoy playing. So these guys, they're going to have to show me a lot to pull me off of that game. Like, will I pick up Anthem and play it? Yes. Will I pick up the Division 2 and give it a shot? Absolutely. Like, I'm going to pick these games up and play them, but they're really going to have to do something to show me why I need to play those games instead of Destiny 2. So with Anthem, like, there's some cool stuff that we saw, right? We saw a very interesting world. We see tons of potential flying around as Iron Man and shooting enemies and collecting loot and the promise of a BioWare story tacked onto this kind of an experience. There's some cool stuff there. The reveal we saw for Anthem, as we talked about on our reaction video, and it wasn't necessarily the reveal that we wanted to see from this game, unfortunately. But that said, like, I don't think I've read a negative preview about this game. I've read several of them, read people gushing about this game. They said it feels incredible to play. The flying feels awesome. It controls great. It's fun to shoot and engage in combat. The boss fight at the end is very challenging in that mission, and it's fun to play. So even though the game may not have demoed very well to the audience, I don't think, the people that have had hands-on time with that demo have come away very, very impressed. So, there's that. So it sounds like Anthem is coming around nicely, and if they can deliver on their promise to deliver a story that's meaningful and deliver like a loot system that's engaging, then Anthem's got a chance to pull me away from Destiny a little bit. But it's I think for Anthem, it's going to come down to the story. Like, can it deliver on a world and a story that's really going to pull me in and make me want to like get involved in that world? And for the Division 2, like, it's got raids coming. They've committed to the end game in that game. They've talked about it. Like, that was the big criticism of the first Division. People weren't happy with the way the end game operated. So they've committed to fixing that. They've committed to these big raids. They've committed to free DLC, which is huge in this industry. So much in the way that Battlefield was like, hey, we don't have a premium pass. We're giving you everything for free after this game launches. Like, that's what the Division did. They came out and they were like, look, these other guys are charging you for stuff. We're giving you the DLC for free. So the content drops, the story additions, the additional activities, like all that stuff's coming to the game. You don't have to pay us any more money. So that's incredibly appealing for the people that play these games because they invest so much time into them, and the fact that they're going to get all this new stuff for free, like, that's awesome. But the world of the Division was just not that interesting.
Right.
Like, the premise of it is great. Like, this bio weapon that's unleashed on Black Friday, and it kind of decimates the world or whatever. Like it's got a really cool concept, but cardboard characters and that typical like stilted Ubisoft like military jargon that they like to put into their games, it just wasn't that engaging. Like, the world of Destiny 2 is far more engaging than the Division. So as fun as the gameplay is and as fun as it is to engage in action in the Division, it's just at the end of the day, it just didn't do enough to hold my attention. So it's like, can the Division 2 remedy that? Can it create a world that's more interesting for me to get into? So basically that's just a long way of saying I'm invested in the Destiny 2. I'm going to be playing Destiny 2, and I'd be very shocked if I dropped that game for either one of these based on what I've seen up to this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we saw. I mean, obviously, Anthem was the one that we were most interested in going into E3. I know a couple of us are a little bit interested in Division 2, but Anthem was the one, when we saw a couple months back when they first revealed Anthem, we were like, whoa, okay, this is what we want to play. You get to basically be Iron Man and flying around and playing a Destiny-style universe, and that's something we were really, really excited about. And here's some stuff. Here's some information. I'll just go over some of this. You can find a lot of this stuff online, but here's some of the things that we know about Anthem now, because basically what we saw in the gameplay, it was just, I mean, Frankie, what was it? It was like this cut-up gameplay of different parts of a mission. I mean, it wasn't like one giant playthrough. They just featured a little bit here and a little bit there, and that was about it, right?
Yeah, which we didn't even get to see this really cool, challenging boss fight. So,
yeah,
We did.
awesome way to end the demo by just cutting out the best part. But what is Anthem? And basically, Anthem is a share-world RPG. In Anthem, you are a freelancer, someone who has cobbled together enough parts and tech to create and pilot a superhuman exosuit called a Javelin. There's also a meta character, the pilot. Your pilot is essentially your character, though you'll rarely ever see them. Don't think of your pilot as an extension of yourself. Think of your javelins as an extension of you. Though your pilot has a separate skill tree, and each javelin has its own separate skill tree, your pilot affects all javelins. For example, if you put points into your pilot jump jets, letting you hover longer, all javelins reap the benefit. But if you put points into your Colossus mortar damage, that doesn't carry over to other javelins. So consider your pilot like a tree from which each javelin is a branch with its own branches. In the world around you, you can share with up to 4 players. You're a third-person wrecking crew popping shot off after shot off with your 2 weapon slots and performing critical abilities with your 2 equipable skill slots and ultimate. Starting to sound a lot like Destiny 2.
That sounds very, very familiar, Brent.
So I want to start at that first, Frankie. I know we're all big fans of Destiny 2. We all love Destiny and the world that they created, and we've spent a lot of time playing it. Hearing this about kind of the structure of Anthem, what's your thoughts on that?
I like it, honestly. That's kind of one of my gripes with Destiny. I feel like you have limited ways to kind of make your character what's the word I'm looking for? Like feel unique depending on which class you're rolling as. You know, like there's just like a couple of like default slots you can pick and that's it. So this seems like, you know, not only are you going to have like your core, you know, pilot abilities that are going to, you know, benefit your type of gameplay just in general, but then you're also going to have like each individual class like it's going to be able to build its own type of thing. So this sounds like a game that's going to take like this core idea of, you know, kind of like in Destiny, how you're going to play, you know, play the way that you want. But I feel like this is going to give you much more customization and allow you to even tweak deeper, you know, like your own play style and whichever javelins you personally enjoy.
Mm-hmm. Bender, how about you, man? What's your take on this stuff?
Sounds pretty cool to me. You know, I really like the fact that you can, you know, as your one pilot, you can play whichever javelin you want to play as and switch between them. You're not like locked in, like when you choose a warlock or a hunter, you're playing you know, that class through the whole game. This way, you know, you can switch out depending on the situation, depending on the mission. Maybe you need more firepower, so you switch to the Colossus or whatever. I like that a lot. I also like the idea of having equipable special abilities, stuff like that, so you can kind of customize it to your play style. That sounds really cool. And I want to know what an ultimate looks like. It sounds awesome. So, yeah, everything I'm hearing about Anthem sounds really sweet.
And Boyce, your thoughts on that information we just talked about?
Yeah, I'm all for it, man. You know, it sounds like you said, it sounds very Destiny in the way it's set up. I do like what Frankie was talking about in terms of being able to upgrade your character and your javelins and having a little bit more flexibility in terms of that. You can also, I mean, you can jump into any of these javelins that you want, so you're not locked in to a specific suit. You can interchange between the 4 of them, and you know you can choose to upgrade those how you want, how to upgrade your pilot. I like that there's a little bit of strategy involved in how you're going to choose to upgrade your character. Like, do I put this into my pilot and allow myself to use these abilities across all 4 of my suits, or do I focus on this one suit that I really like to use and start putting my points into that and like upgrade the abilities into that javelin and, you know, be able to use whatever you know, special moves I get access to via that. So yeah, I do like the way all this sounds. You know, it definitely sounds awesome.
And now let's talk a little bit about these javelins. They allow players to explore the world, essentially turning you into superheroes. Not everyone can pilot javelins, and javelins aren't ubiquitous. Well, that's a big word. I think I got a headache now. Nothing in the world of Anthem is mass-produced. Everything in this world is painstakingly handmade, so javelins are finite in source, and therefore those who pilot them are the few who can step outside the walls of Fort Tarsus, humanity's bastion of safety and society. There are 4 classes of Anthem javelins. Each one is designed to fill a specific role or class in your 4-person squad, but they're also designed to overlap one another so you can be flexible in how you play each class. For example, the heaviest of the bunch, the Colossus, is the tanky, slow-moving javelin. The Ranger is the all-around balance class. You can also customize your javelins through independent skill trees, so a Colossus you build to be faster and less tanky could compete with a heavier, more powerful Ranger, and so on and so forth. Each javelin fulfills a specific archetype, but you have wiggle room to create the kind of exosuit that fits your preferred playstyle within the confines of the intended class structure. And, you know, as we mentioned, there's classes. There's Ranger. There's Colossus that we already talked about. Storm is a mysterious figure, and as you've seen by now, it cloaks itself in a bubble of energy and moves through the air like Magneto. While BioWare didn't reveal too much about this, it wasn't playable. It most certainly fits the mage role of the group. If it's more fragile, but can pack a devastating elemental and unnatural abilities. And then lastly, we have the Interceptor, the fourth and final archetype, and is called the Interceptor. BioWare was very tight-lipped on this javelin, but its long legs and springing disposition make me think it's going to be the fast-paced, nimble, swift, and agile javelin, perhaps an assassin. We'll have to wait for more information to know for sure, but this could fill out the final role in the traditional RPG sense. So, boys, we have it appears 4 or 5 different classes. What's your thoughts on how each of these classes are, specifically designed for certain things, but they can be tweaked to work outside of like their design focus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that they they fit into these certain archetypes that we can wrap our head around. Like the Colossus, the big like tank dude. This is standard in any RPG that you play, or this would be like into the Titans in Destiny. Then you have the Storm character who's like a mage. Once again, something we can easily wrap our minds around because we see this in a lot of these RPGs, especially in cooperative RPGs. Like there's these certain roles that you take on in these characters that you play. So Storm also reminds me a lot of the Warlocks in Destiny, so I'll be playing as Storm more than likely. Then you've got the Interceptor, which for all intents and purposes is a hunter or an assassin. And then you've got the Ranger, who's like kind of the warrior class. It's that easy one. It's that first one that you pick. It's the all-around good player. Like this is all stuff that we can wrap our heads around. But I like the way this sounds. They talk about in here about some of the different abilities that these different javelins have and what they have access to, and it all sounds really, really cool. So I'm definitely digging the system from what I've read, and this is some of the stuff that they could have better explained when they were demoing this game or presenting this to us. Like, this is some of the stuff that we had questions about and they didn't really get into. So would have liked to have seen more about this, but it's been fun reading about it outside of the reveal.
Mm-hmm. Frank, your thoughts on these different classes and how they're starting to sound a lot like Destiny 2 classes?
I'm okay with that. I mean, it's familiar to me, so at least I'm not going to jump into this game, lost and wondering, the nuances of each type of javelin class. So I'm fine with that. I mean, I've been playing Destiny, like Boy said, for 4 years now, so I have a pretty good idea of what to expect in these different type of classes.
Mm-hmm. Now, Bender, I know you're very excited for Anthem. A little foreshadow there of what we'll be talking about later on. But what's your take, man, on these classes, and which class is speaking to you?
I am also drawn to the Storm.
What a man of taste. You're a man of taste, Bender.
Warlocks for life.
I always go for like the mage-like characters in any RPG or MMO. I always like the characters like that can have cool abilities and shoot things and stuff like that. But I mean, honestly, I'm definitely going to try all of them. I think they all sound really cool in their own way. If I play as a Colossus, I'll probably spec it to be on the faster side because I like it a little bit faster of a character. Mm-hmm. But if it turns out that it's makes us an unbalanced team to have 3 Storms on the same team, then I'll gladly switch to something else, whatever works. But yeah, they all sound pretty cool, but the Storm is the one I'm more drawn to.
Now we're playing the gameplay trailer right now that they showed, like the cut up footage of it. I want to get you guys' thoughts on the gameplay. Now, obviously, we're talking about whether or not there's enough room for Destiny 2, The Division 2, and Anthem, and we're going to talk about Anthem gameplay here for a moment. Now, I know, Frank, you and I weren't too blown away by what we saw here. Ben, I know you weren't too wild by it. I'm starting to believe Bender probably was a little excited about it. So let's start with Bender first. With this gameplay trailer, Bender, what stood out to you? Did you have any concerns, or did this game just speak to you from the get?
I thought everything looked pretty cool. I mean, like the guys said earlier, I would have liked to have seen more. It would have been nice to have seen that boss battle that they cut away from. But I liked what I saw. It was pretty cool. It was good to see some more gameplay of Anthem, and my excitement just hasn't really dwindled. It's from the initial reveal, I'm still just as excited. So, this didn't really take it down any notches for me.
Mm-hmm. Frankie, what were your concerns from the demo? Like, what stood out to you compared to something like Destiny 2 or what you've played of The Division?
It was mostly towards the end, where they're trying to shut down that beam or whatever, and you see some of the characters flying around and shooting.
Hmm.
Historically, flying around and shooting is never, it's never as fluid as it looks on screen. So that was a lot of my concerns. And this is a game where we're going to be, like we've talked about, we're Iron Man, so we're going to be flying around a lot, and it's important for this game specifically. If if that particular piece of the combat doesn't feel good, that's going to be a big turnoff for me because, like I said, we're going to be spending a lot of time flying around. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I think games like Dark Void have come along and they've done this, and done a pretty, okay job with it.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's been executed acceptably before, and it is BioWare, so I do have hope that and even with having played Mass Effect Andromeda, you had that kind of boost pack, so there was a lot of jumping, and you had abilities you could kind of hover in the air and shoot. So this is something that they have kind of been dabbling with before. So I'm hoping that they've perfected it for this.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I'm just worried that from what we had seen of it, it didn't seem like it was anything special. Like this
Right.
didn't seem like a world that I haven't seen before.
Hmm. And see, that's one thing we talked about, and I agree with you 100%. Boyce, I'm going to get your thoughts here in a second, but I wanted to add this portion of it too. Based on what I saw from the trailer, like a lot of stuff that Frankie said, it just didn't blow me away in terms of the gameplay. That's watching it though. Okay, now I'm not trying to say that this presentation wasn't important. When you show up a gameplay trailer at E3, it has to be really impressive. It has to blow you away. And obviously, it's subjective. I'm sure there's some people that watches. Bender watched it and he really enjoyed it. I watched it and we saw the hovering and shooting, and I just imagine that hovering and trying to aim. I mean, is this a steady hover? But Boyce, I think you mentioned that your jetpack runs out over time. So I mean, is it going to be drastic? And that's just my concern is hovering and shooting and stuff like that. Plus, flying around didn't seem all that fast. Especially since you're supposed to be like Iron Man, I would expect you to be like really just kind of like flying all over the place across the map. So the gameplay didn't blow me away. But Boyce, we all know that seeing a game in action and playing a game are two different things. And like you mentioned earlier, Boyce, the previews for this game out of E3 were fantastic. People said once they were playing it, they loved it. They had a great time with it. So that gives me a glimmer of hope that I'm kind of excited. Maybe this is just something that we need to play to fully understand. But from a presentation perspective, I felt it was disappointing because it didn't, like Frankie mentioned, they cut out a bunch of the best stuff. We didn't get to see the boss battle. We never got to see a full combat situation play out. They just kept cutting away and cutting away. Didn't get to see a lot of the ultimates. But as somebody who really enjoys Destiny 2, you've often said Destiny 2 is the best first-person shooter you've played this gen. Bungie has those controls down to a science. What was your takeaway watching this compared to something like Destiny 2? What was your take on the gameplay trailer?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you guys, whereas I wasn't overly wowed by what they showed, partly because it just looked like what we had seen before from last year. Like we didn't see anything really above and beyond what we had already seen from that game. Like we saw it was a very short gameplay segment with a couple of javelin suits running through a small level, defeating a couple enemies, and then getting to a boss, and then it just cutting away. We didn't see anything like you mentioned of note in that trailer that we didn't already know about the game. And specifically, Brent, in those previews, like people have zeroed in on the flight controls. Like that's something that almost every preview I've read has pointed out. Like the flight controls feel good. It feels good to fly around in this game, which is something that not a lot of games. I shouldn't say not a lot, but it's not something that every game gets right. Like every game that has flight doesn't feel great. So the fact that the people that have gotten their hands on the controller says it feels great to fly around, that's exciting for this game because that's one of the coolest things. That's what drew us into the game to begin with. Like, the guy just jumped off the ledge and he's flying around like Iron Man. Like, that's awesome. Like, I want to be able to do that. So, it's good to hear that sounds great. But yeah, the demo they showed to us, it just didn't hit like I wanted it to. So I said it before, but I felt like they could have done with taking the Destiny approach and just giving us an event just dedicated to Anthem and just really diving into it and showing us a significant portion of the gameplay about that game and really diving into all the different javelin classes, how the loot system works, like these things that we have questions about as fans of this genre. And I know they were trying to put together an E3 presentation that was exciting, but it just didn't hit for me in terms of that. So whereas the presentation wasn't all that exciting. The stuff that have come outside of the presentation is exciting, like reading these previews and seeing the flight controls feel good and seeing people have fun with the boss battle and all that kind of stuff. Like that's great to read. So it gives me more hope, and I'm a little more excited about the game now than I was after that presentation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's fair enough. So that's what we got out of Anthem. Now we're going to shift gears and head over to the Division 2 and kind of talk about this for a few minutes. Not nearly as much information out of E3 as Anthem or even the Destiny 2 Forsaken, but we still got some good information. We got some gameplay of the Division 2. Now the Division was an interesting game because, you know, as we first learned with Destiny, the game changed after a year. Destiny changed drastically. It took the Division like 2 years to really start to really change, but those changes have paid off in tenfold because the Division is hot again, man. There's a lot of people playing the Division, especially when they announced the Division 2. People really were just like, man, I want to get back into the Division. And they have done a wholesale of changes that have quality of life changes, adding content, making things more balanced in the dark zone. They've done a lot of great things with the Division to make it relevant again, which is what it needs in order to transition well over to the Division 2. Now, what we know about the Division 2 is that this is releasing on March 15th. We do know that this will be getting a proper raid. We had incursions last time, but now we're getting a proper raid, which can be played with up to 8 people. That's a lot of people. That's a big change from anything in the Division 1. For me, that's probably the most exciting thing that we got from the Division 2 out of E3 was the fact that there's going to be raids and it's going to be 8 players. Now, you and I were talking, are these raids going to be elaborate like the raids in Destiny 2, or are they just bringing in 8 people because there's going to be some big bosses with a lot of hit points? That remains to be seen. We don't really know a lot about the raids, but I think even for a tactical military shooter like the Division, I still think they could add some mechanics to make it, to add some puzzle elements to it. I mean, I don't expect it to be jumping sections like in Destiny 2 or in Destiny. They can get away with a lot more stuff in a sci-fi universe like Destiny than they can in a Tom Clancy game, which is often grounded in reality. So the fact that we're getting raids with 8 players is sweet. And then the other big thing is obviously free DLC. Everything for this game is going to be free coming out, which is absolutely fantastic, and that's going to interest a lot of people. So now you got the Division 2, adding raids, free DLC, the same gameplay that we really liked. I mean, we all played the Division, and we all agreed that the gameplay felt really, really good. It felt good for a tactical shooter. So they're taking everything all the mistakes they've learned from Destiny 1, or the Division 1, they're learning from that. They made a lot of corrections, so this game's going to be a lot more refined when it comes out. And then they're adding a lot of big features that we're all really excited about. So, Frankie, I want to start with you, obviously. Again, this is going to be a very difficult time come March 15th when we have all 3 of these games basically firing at all cylinders. What's your take from everything we learned about the Division 2?
Coming out of E3, honestly, like between these two as, an alternative to Destiny, I feel more confident coming into the Division 2. That's a game that we have seen grow exponentially since it launched. So they've obviously, taken in a lot of feedback and learned a lot from their mistakes. To the point now where we're going to see raids, which I'm excited about. The fact that a game like this is going to have its first year of, basically endgame content for free. Dude, that's huge, especially if you want to keep an active player base in a game like this. We're not going to worry about not being able to find people for whatever it is that they're going to be bringing out post-launch. So that's awesome in and of itself. And, just like we were talking about, the gameplay in the Division is excellent. The cover system is awesome. The shooting mechanics feel really damn good. And, even getting in there and just kind of, all getting together with friends. Like the Division is the game I still wish I had, sunken more time into than I have.
Right.
But even the location, just everything about the Division 2, from what I saw at E3 has me very, very excited about that game. And the fact that it's not coming out on February 22nd, that's a huge plus.
That is a really big plus. Thank you for not bringing it out on February 22nd with 5 other games. I wanted to go to Bender on this. Now, Bender, I know you played a little bit of the Division 1. You didn't play a whole lot of it, but I know you said you liked the controls. But the Division 1 is obviously a big-time departure from what you typically enjoy. You like sci-fi. You like the worlds of, like, Destiny and Mass Effect. But now when you hear the Division 2, a game that you felt played pretty good, getting 8-player raids, free DLC, I mean, does that kind of speak to you a little bit? Does that kind of make you want to be like, yeah, I'll give this a shot? I'm kind of interested in giving this a shot when it comes out.
Yeah, I might give it another shot. My whole issue with the Division 1 was that it just wasn't very fun solo.
Mm-hmm.
I found even on the easy mode, the missions were like way too hard to like fight a boss or something by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's no fun. I shouldn't have to play with people if I can't find anyone to play with, or if nobody's online right now.
Right.
So that was my whole thing, and I just like didn't want to bother with it. But if they fix that, and if everything else is the same, I mean, everything else I liked about it. I mean, even though the setting wasn't like the thing that normally I would get into, I still really enjoyed the gameplay. I thought the missions were cool. The story was all right.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the setting was really, really cool with the New York and the snow and everything. And I think this new one looks cool in Washington, D.C. So everything looks like it's there. I just, so I might give it another chance, and just hopefully it'll be they'll fix the solo thing. Because if you guys aren't online and I want to play, I don't want to have to be like getting my ass kicked trying to play solo.
Yeah, some of those bosses were pretty tough in the Division. I'm not gonna lie, some of those were really, really tough.
Yeah.
Boyce, your thoughts on the Division 2 and some of these things that they're talking about that kind of piqued our interest, like the free DLC, the 8-player raids, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was alluding to a little bit earlier, like this stuff sounds great. 8-player raids and free DLC, like all that stuff sounds great. Washington D.C., great. Sounds like a great setting to get into. But it just, there's a couple things working against the Division 2. First, it's the third of these games to release in the 3 that we're talking about. So Destiny 2 Forsaken will have been out. We'll be knee deep in that for 6 months before the Division 2 comes out. Anthem will be out almost a month prior to that. So if that sinks its hooks into us, we'll then be playing that. We'll then have to step away from both Anthem and Destiny 2 to start the Division 2 and like dig into that. So this one's really got to wow us when it comes out, because it's playing from behind, because it's the last one to be released.
Right.
And it's just at the end of the day, the world of the Division 2 just is nowhere near as interesting as the world in Destiny, or the world from what I'm reading about in Anthem. Like Anthem sounds like a very interesting sci-fi world. Like when I pick up a gun in the Division and it's like SRL436, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. But then I pick up a gun in Destiny and it's called the Fatebringer, and you have a description of what it is, that's way cooler. So yeah, just the Division, like you guys mentioned, the gameplay is fun with that, but that game's really gonna have to wow me. Like it's really gonna have to blow my socks off for me to drop, if I get into Anthem, or to drop Destiny to play this one. I'm definitely gonna play it, but whether or not I invest like hundreds of hours into it, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I got some comments in the chat. Dark Shadow Wolf said, Anthem seems like that person who made a great first impression on you, and when you wanted to know more, it wasn't what you thought. That's kind of a bummer.
Sounds about right.
Fear the Beard said, I'm definitely excited for Division 2, and Forsaken will be fun, but Anthem is meh unless I get to play with Frankie. Well, Frankie, the whole Anthem, whether or not Fear enjoys Anthem is solely based on you. And then Jamie Jacobson had to say this, I can't wait to play Anthem. I mean, like I said, I think, Jamie, we're all in the same, we're all in agreement with you. We want to play it. I think that's going to be the ultimate way for us to decide if this game is really what we want to play, is going to be actually playing it. I mean, I hate basing it on a presentation, but this is E3, and you need to put something out there to wow people, and it just didn't wow me. I'm sure, but I mean, it sounds like you guys really enjoyed it, and that's really, really cool, and I'm glad you guys sounded off. I'm really excited that people are excited for this game. I think I'll get a clear picture of what Anthem is when we finally get our hands on it. So, some really good stuff with the Division 2. Boyce, let's just do a quick recap on what we saw from Destiny 2. Obviously, we talked about this extensively on Tower Talk. That's available now on YouTube. You can check that out. But let's just do a brief recap of what we got from Destiny 2, and then we'll kind of wrap up the segment figuring out, is there room for these 3 games?
Yeah, for Destiny 2, like you mentioned, Brent, we did a tower talk a few days ago. It's archived on the YouTube feed here, so definitely go over and watch that. I think we had a great conversation about Destiny 2 and everything that was revealed at E3. As far as the main points of what we saw, first and foremost, we saw the shocking story reveal trailer for Forsaken, where they unveiled the fate of Cade 6 in a trailer that I thought was beautifully constructed for the minute 30 that it lasted. So we saw the return of Prince Aldrin, the fate of Cade 6, and a whole wealth of questions about what's going to happen in Forsaken, and a collective gasp throughout the Destiny 2 community. Then the big feature at E3 was the Gambit mode. So this was the mode that is a PvEVP mode that was originally debuted to the Destiny community at the community summit some weeks back, and everybody that had gotten their hands on it at the time seemed like they were really excited about it. They weren't allowed to talk about it at the time, but you could tell there was a palpable excitement in the community about what they saw from Gambit. And now that we've gotten to see some more from it, we know what it entails via the gameplay and the write-ups and things that we've seen from E3. Everybody seems to be having a great time because everything that I've read has been extremely positive about Gambit. Sounds like a super fun mode where you're not only battling enemies and trying to kill bosses, but you're also battling other players that are in the other arena next to you. So it really sounds like the perfect blend of everything that Destiny has to offer in terms of its loot and its weapons and its PvP and its PvE. It's just bringing all of that stuff together in one mode that encompasses it all, and it sounds like it's awesome. And I can't wait to play it. We're gonna be playing the hell out of Gambit when that thing comes out. So definitely be on the lookout for the Short Pause Guardians once Forsaken hits. But yeah, that's kind of the two pillars that they focused on here, and I thought they were very successful in what they delivered with the story trailer and with Gambit.
Absolutely. So, guys, now that we got that information, Frankie, I want to talk to you about Destiny 2 for just a moment for a second. You too, Benner, because I know right now we can't seem to pull you guys away from Monster Hunter, and understandably so. I mean, I know you guys really enjoy that game, and that's great. Based on the stuff that you've heard though regarding Destiny 2 and Forsaken, how interested are you to actually jumping back? And I don't mean like just a little bit, but I mean actually jumping back in, playing through the campaign, trying out Gambit, and seeing if maybe Destiny 2 can get her hooks back into you. Frankie, let's go with you first.
I honestly have no doubt that Gambit's gonna pull me back in on its own. Destiny PvP is one of the things I still will fire up Destiny for if I have the time. I love Iron Banner, especially now that they've gone back to classic control. Oh, it's so satisfying.
Yes.
But the thing is, like with Destiny 2, I've noticed that I have a greater appreciation for the expansions. I've fired up Warmind with Bender. We did Osiris a couple days before that, and I feel like I enjoyed those campaigns and that game a lot more, having not touched it for as long as I had, then coming back into it and all this new stuff. And oh, cool, I can level up again. And I had that moment of, dude, Destiny is really fun again for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've hit a point now where I love the fact that I've played so many other games in my downtime away from Destiny, and that's something I didn't get to do with Destiny 1 because I was just so damn addicted to it. And now Monster Hunter is that problem for me mostly. But I don't know. I part of me, I won't be upset if Forsaken roasts me back in for weekly stuff and, oh my god, guys, we have to do the raid this week and all that stuff. I'm not going to be upset if that happens. But at the same time, I think just going forward, and for me to not, kind of like what Moody did. Like Moody, I know, he played a ton of Destiny 1, and he's at a point where he's burned out on Destiny, like to the point where he doesn't really want to play Destiny 2.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to play other stuff. And I worry that I'm going to hit that point. It's like with Monster Hunter. I know Benner and I were talking about this the other day, but I'm pretty sure once we both get that platinum trophy, we're probably not going to play Monster Hunter on PS4 again. It is what it is. But I don't know. I don't get me wrong. If when that comes out and you guys are like, dude, we gotta get on. We gotta do some Gambit this tonight. And I'm gonna be like, dude, hell yeah, I'm there. Like that. I think that'll be like a new exciting thing. And don't get me wrong. I'm totally I'm not opposed at all to trying to set aside a night, each week to get in and do some Destiny PvP stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also hit a point where I'm not that interested in, like, the whole thing with Destiny 1 that pulled all of us in, I think, was that chase for Gallarhorn, especially. Like going out there trying to get the best guns. And I mean, for someone like me who's kind of lapsed and not delved deep into Destiny 2, getting in there now trying to go for, like the best guns, like I'm just not as invested in it as I was before. And I think that's, like I said before, that's helped me a lot in terms of just appreciating the changes and, the content that's come to Destiny 2 after launch.
Mm-hmm. Well, Frankie, one more thing I want to mention about Iron Banner is not only is it classic control, but it is going to be power level is going to matter. That is another awesome thing that's coming in September is power level will matter in Iron Banner again, which is something that we've been just clamoring for. I know I've been excited for it. I know Boyce is something, we've often said Iron Banner was just Crucible, basically another extension of Crucible, and that's all it was. Just Crucible play with 6v6. Now Iron Banner is going to be power levels are going to matter. It's going to make it unique again, and it's going to reward those that put a lot of time into Destiny 2. Bender, I want to come over to you now. The other Monster Hunter guy that just wants to keep playing Monster Hunter. Any interest based on what we've got, not a Forsaken and Gambit and what we've heard about that? Are you interested in getting back into D2?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get back into it. I am very interested in playing Gambit. I think that mode sounds like a lot of fun because I like the way it mixes PvE and PvP. That's really cool. It's good. Reminds me of kind of like playing in the Prison of Elders, but then there's going to be a PvP, flair to that. It just sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. So, like Frankie said, I think that mode alone probably will draw me back in. I mean, who knows? Maybe Frankie and I will get that Monster Hunter Platinum by then. No, probably not. But it's okay. But we can still have like a night to play Monster Hunter, and we can play Destiny another night or something like that. We can work it out. But yeah, everything I'm hearing about Forsaken sounds pretty awesome. So I could definitely see myself getting back into it.
Boyce, your final thoughts on what we saw from Destiny 2?
I mean, we've been talking about this for a while, Brent. But we play Destiny every week. We put tons of hours into Destiny every week. Never stop playing Destiny. That's not going to change with Forsaken. If anything, we're just going to play it even more. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll squeeze a few more hours in here and there. Yeah, I think what this comes down to for me, Brent, the entirety of this conversation is that Destiny 2 is the leader in the clubhouse right now. Like, this is the game I've invested the last 4 years into. So I'm really going to have to see something special from Anthem or The Division to pull me away from this game. And I haven't seen anything yet that's going to lead me to believe that they're going to be able to do that. But I haven't got my hands on the controller in either one of the games yet. So we'll see when we're actually in like the live setting. But just from a 30,000 foot view right now, I haven't seen anything yet from Anthem or The Division that Destiny's in any danger of me not playing that game in favor of these other two.
All right. Well, you just started off the final question I was going to ask you guys to close out this segment. We know where Boyce stands. Bender, gun to your head. Come March, we'll say March 22nd, a week after Division 2 shows up. Out of these three games, which one do you think will be your main outside of Monster Hunter?
Dear, hopefully by then we'll have the Platinum.
I would be upset if we don't.
It's really tough to say. I mean, I want to say Anthem because I really am looking forward to that game, and I think I'm going to really dive into it. But I mean, who knows? Maybe Destiny will really draw me back in. I'll want to keep playing it. I don't know. Probably Anthem, though.
Probably Anthem. Okay, Frankie, how about you, man? Who's the leader in your race?
Well, knowing that I'm going to need friends to play these games with, because, like I've talked about before, I don't find Destiny very fun playing solo. If Bender's going to be committed to Anthem in the same way that we've been committed to Monster Hunter, I mean, probably going to end up playing a lot of Anthem, even though the Division 2 is where my heart is right now.
That's interesting. Obviously, if you guys are playing Anthem, if Boyce picks up Anthem, then Anthem might just walk away with this. But based on what we saw, gun to my head right now, I think Destiny, with all the improvements that are coming with the September update, the new mode, making Iron Banner, meaningful again, and all of the record books that are going to tell you where you can find the weapon that you don't have, what you need to do in order to attain it. There's just going to be a lot of changes to Destiny 2 that I've been asking for, that the community's been asking for, and I think it's just going to make things very difficult throughout the winter, especially when Anthem and the Division 2 drops. We only have so many hours in the day, and these are games that you have to put the time in to get the most out of it, and it's very difficult to say, I can do all three of them, because I absolutely can't. So it'll be interesting to see how things unfold. It's going to be a hell of a battle. I mean, these are three big-time games that are all in the same mold. They're going to be fighting for your attention, and it's gonna the communities are gonna get crazy, man. We're gonna find out who's who and where everyone's hearts lie, but it's gonna be pretty sweet. A couple things in the chat. Fear the Beard said this, Bender and Frankie, I got my Monster Hunter Platinum, and that thing is a pain chasing those gold crowns. The
That's
gold
where we're at.
crowns. That's what you guys
that's
are
where we're at
working
right
on.
now. Those are the main things we're working on.
Dude, we got so shafted the other day.
Uh-oh.
We
Yeah,
thought for
we
sure
did.
we were gonna get a small crown for the puffball, and he was tiny, and he was smallest, but not small enough for a crown.
Yeah.
So disappointed.
Moody responded, spot on, Franklin. He says you were spot on with your analysis. And Jamie said, if Anthem looks as good as I hope it is, I'll be committed to it as well. So not only will he be dying in Monster Hunter, he'll be dying a lot in Anthem. So Yahoo.
Probably to like the base monster too. That'll be great. I can't wait.
No, that's good stuff. So I guess, like I said, it's going to be fun to watch, and we'll see how that plays out. All right, let's move on to our next topic. Something that I know, there was a lot of discussion about Halo Infinite at Microsoft's press conference. Is this Halo 6? Is this a spin-off? What is this game? Well, we got the details on it. I want to get you guys' thoughts on it, because this game might not even be close to coming out. In fact, this could be a next-gen title based on the information we got from 343. And here's what they had to say in their blog. The E3 demo showcases some of the exciting potential of this new technology. They're talking about the new Slipspace engine that Infinite Halo will be built on. Everything you see is running in-engine. We still have a long way to go until we ship the game. So things will certainly evolve between now and the release of Halo Infinite. Though the engine demo is a clear indication of the direction we are heading with our next game, and a great snapshot of where our tech is right now. In Halo Infinite, the game will focus on Master Chief and continue his saga after the events of Halo 5. So obviously in Halo 5, he split up between Master Chief and what was the other guy's name? Locke, yes. You went back and forth. You played back and forth. It wasn't as focused as a story on Chief as a lot of fans of the series would have hoped. The goal of the entire 343 Industries team is to make a great Halo game for our fans that also invites new players into our franchise. We will have some new and unexpected directions to take folks in, and they believe the way they will achieve this is to build alongside the community, iterating and improving as we go. And now there's one other rumor that kind of leaked out during the week. Reports claim that Halo Infinite will be two separate releases. It is rumored that Halo Infinite could split up multiplayer and single player. Noted Microsoft insider Brad Sam says he heard from sources that single player for Infinite could launch in late 2019, with the multiplayer portion arriving in 2020. Nicholas Bouvier, is that Bouvier or Bouvier?
Yeah, I think Bouvier sounds good.
Bouvier, that sounds good. He's the Halo Infinite art director. This is what he had to say. The overall aim of the new style is to draw significant inspiration from the most iconic and historic parts of the Halo franchise. At the same time, 343 will be trying to modernize and take advantage of the power of the Xbox One consoles to make the game look great. Master Chief's helmet is meant to be a good example of the new art direction for Halo Infinite. And then Aaron Greenberg had this to say. I'm personally excited that it's not just Halo 6. This is a bigger, bolder, more ambitious title. And then it's also worth noting, in 2014, Halo boss Bonnie Ross said we may never see a Halo 6 because 343 wanted to move away from numbered entries. So, wow, a lot to take in there. But and that's what kind of made things a little bit more confusing about this reveal, because everyone was like, "Oh man, is this the next Halo?" And this is just basically concept right now. Basically, what we saw in this trailer. This is just an idea of what this engine is capable of. It's not an indication of what or anywhere we'll be exploring in Halo Infinite. But Frankie, I want to come to you first. I mean, we got this trailer that showed beautiful vistas, and we finally saw Chief's helmet. But what's your? Does this game even sound remotely close to launching? I mean, is this going to even drop on the one? What's your take on everything we got from this, dude?
The fact that we didn't see any kind of gameplay for this that came with this trailer, I don't think this game is coming out anytime soon. And like I said before, if we're talking 2020 for next gen consoles, I don't see this game getting a full proper reveal until next year's E3, which again, we could be talking about next gen systems at that point. So, I would not at all be surprised if this does launch, in 2 states. You put out your base Halo game, which I could see being a cross-gen thing, but then that lies, if they do separate this and do a multiplayer release later, are you gonna? It's just weird looking at where it might be coming out, because if you do have this as a cross-gen title, and it is Microsoft, so I do imagine that you'll be able to play multiplayer between the one and whatever Xbox comes next. But do you? I guess my question is, do you risk hurting any of the player bases if they do delay the multiplayer, and it's not like a cross generational pool of players? That's my only concern for what they're going to do with this.
Mm-hmm. Bender, what's your thoughts, man? I mean, for them to come out and say and start off their E3 presser with Halo Infinite, when everyone's like, "Oh my God, is this Halo 6?" and then basically come out and say this is a tech demo, and is that strange to you? I mean, are you concerned that this thing is still a ways off?
Yeah, it's a little strange. Yeah, it seems like it would be quite a ways off if they, like Frankie said, if they didn't have any gameplay whatsoever. I mean, it was a cool trailer and everything, but it really didn't show much, so really have no idea how far away this game is. I don't know, maybe they're just trying to appease the fans a little bit and just let them know that they are working on something, but I don't know, maybe it would have been best just to wait.
Right. Boys, what's your thoughts, man? I mean, they start off their press conference with Halo Infinite, and then we find out this is basically just a tech demo of showing what this engine is capable of. I mean, everyone's always excited about new engines because that means they're probably built more with the newest hardware in mind. But what was your takeaway from finding out when you found out that this is just basically a demo and we don't really have an idea of when this game will launch, and the fact that we're not even sure this is going to be called Halo 6. I mean, even though it's a continuation of Halo 5, do you find it strange that it's going to be called Infinite and not just Halo 6?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot confusing with this. This was by far, in my opinion, the weirdest unveil of all of E3. Like, starting off your press conference, you come out with the new Halo, which everybody's like anticipating and waiting for, and then we don't see anything from it. We see Chief's helmet, and then we see Slip Space Engine. Then it's called Halo Infinite, and everybody's like, "What in the hell is going on here? Like, what is this game? What is happening right now?" So then, we dive a little bit deeper. Some of the stories start to dig into this. We find out it's just an engine demo for what this game could be in the future. Clearly, there's some callbacks to the first Halo in terms of some of the vistas that they showed. So they look to be trying to impart the spirit of that game into whatever the next Halo turns out to be. Then there's a lot of questions about the fact that it's called Halo Infinite. So is this a games as a service game? Is that what we're looking at here? Is it a reference to some of the rumors we're hearing about having a single player and a multiplayer release for the game, which sounds very, very strange to me. For a franchise as big as Halo, and for a fan base who's as invested in the multiplayer as they are, like, it would be very strange for me for them to release a Halo and only include the single player portion of it, especially because that part of the game hasn't been as well received in recent years. So for them to just lead with that and just only have that being a part of the game, I'm not 100% buying that right now. And I don't know that that'll be the eventual endpoint for this game. But yeah, I mean, when you talked about Bouvier there, they were or Bouvier, they were mentioning the Xbox One, like that was the console they were talking about. So it seems that they're still shooting for the Xbox One. But like Frankie said, like this game looks to be nowhere near anywhere close to being released. We're just in engine demo phase right now. So we know that when you have to go back to the drawing board and create a whole new engine, that takes time, takes resources away from the development of the actual game proper. So we don't know how long they've had to work on this engine, but I'd imagine it takes a while to create a brand new engine for a video game as big as Halo. So for them to have to go back to the drawing board and do that had to just sap a significant amount of time away from the next Halo release. So I don't know, man. I don't think we're close to this game, and I could very easily see this. Like, think about this too. Like Xbox, clearly, they're not going to catch up to their competitors this generation. Like clearly, the Xbox One has lagged behind in terms of sales. What better way to start the next generation of your console out than by launching with a brand new Halo game? Like that speaks directly to the core Xbox fan, and Halo has the cash to reach outside of that core base and pull in other people as well. It's like everybody knows what Halo is. Everybody who's a gamer knows what Halo is. So if you're talking to your friends, you're like, yeah, man, the new Xbox that's coming out, it's gonna have a brand new Halo with it. And they're like, oh man, I remember playing Halo on the 360 when we were back in college. Yada yada yada. I'd like to check that out. Like I could think of no better title to launch their platform with than Halo, just like they did the original Xbox. And if they're that far away from releasing the game, like why not just put it on the new one? Like how big of a draw is that going to be if this is like, an exclusive game to your new console? Like that will get people to go out and buy your new console. So I could definitely buy the idea that this is being developed for the next Xbox.
Yeah, the strangest thing about this was, and don't get me wrong, this is a beautiful tech demo. This game looked gorgeous. It was a beautiful environment. It was a crystal clear image. The water looked fantastic. Everything about this demo, it looked great. But I feel like they could have used the information in this presentation that they talked about afterwards. When they talked about this will be a direct sequel or this will be following Master Chief more closely. Had they mentioned in that presentation, put something, the focus is back on Chief, and then mention this stuff, how this game draws significant inspiration from the most iconic and historic parts of the Halo franchise. Put all that information out there into this presentation, into this trailer. That would kind of give people a better idea of what to expect. They just came out and said, hey, look, this is going to be a continuation of Halo 5 story. It's going to focus on Chief. Look how beautiful this world's going to be. Cool, we'll see you in a couple years. That would have been a lot better than just pushing out this Halo Infinite and not have any information available right there. All this information came outside of the presentation, which was kind of goofy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
But that's what we got from Halo Infinite. Next thing we're going to talk about is Cyberpunk 2077, and this thing. We got there was a reveal at the end of the Microsoft press conference, a pretty cool one, how they were getting ready to shut it down, and then things started glitching out, and then we got to see this trailer of this world of Cyberpunk 2077. And it was an interesting trailer because it just, there wasn't a whole lot there. It didn't tell you anything about the story. It didn't tell you anything about the gameplay. It just gave you an idea of what this setting is going to look like, and it looked like a crazy-ass city. And I know that was really cool. But the more interesting thing about Cyberpunk 2077 came from the demo that was behind closed doors. There was members of the press that got to go in and actually see the game in action, and there was a lot of details that came out that kind of paint a clearer picture of what we're going to be doing in Cyberpunk 27. And the biggest thing, the most interesting thing that people were really talking about, it was confirmed, this is going to be a first-person RPG. This will be in a first-person perspective as opposed to what we saw in The Witcher 3, which was a third-person action RPG. This is going to be in a first-person perspective. And, there was obviously a lot of people were like, what? No, we don't want that. We want a typical CD Projekt Red RPG. That's what we want to play. And, the first person that came out was Peter Jalexner. He's the lead level designer, and he kind of jumped out and started addressing this right away. And here's what he had to say. First and foremost, I really enjoy all the attention the subject is getting because it's important. This has been an educated decision. The first-person point of view is there so you can see things happening up close and so you can really interact with things in a visceral manner with the game world. It worked out well with our exploration of the genre. He then went on to explain more of the philosophy of how you present perspective in games, saying third person works well in games like The Witcher when you have a lot of motion and movement around you. But when all things happen to you, from you, within you, first person point of view is the right decision to take, especially because of the augmentations. Augmentations? What? What are you talking about here? We're talking about Deus Ex? But so and it's funny you mention that because some of the thing that caught me is when this demo happened and these outlets were able to start writing about and talking about what they've seen. This is from IG, and this is how they described it. With a hell of a lot of guns to fire and damage values popping up as your bullets hit enemies, the combat plays out more like Borderlands or Deus Ex than it does The Witcher 3. There are tons of abilities to use during combat, including bullet ricocheting and a bullet time slowdown that came in handy quite a bit during the 45-minute demo that they saw. Frankie, I want to come to you first. You got a look of concern already. What did you not like about that, or what did you like?
Actually, I like everything you just said, man.
Oh, wow. Oh,
man,
goodness.
You're
Okay,
thinking
cool.
like, I love Borderlands. You start talking about Borderlands gameplay, I'm like, yeah, girl. I love Borderlands. So,
Uh-huh.
no, when this, I did see a lot of conversation about this on Twitter. People who were kind of upset about going from third person to first person. But my opinion, look, CD Projekt Red has yet to under deliver anything to me. I think The Witcher over delivered in spades, so I have absolutely no concerns with if this is the vision that CD Projekt Red has for this game, the way they want you to experience this world, its mechanics, the story. I trust them completely. And even when it comes down to gameplay, I've felt that was one of the things with The Witcher 3. A lot of people had issues with the gameplay, but in my opinion, for me, I loved it. It felt great playing The Witcher. I have absolutely no concerns that, it's going to feel awesome running around this crazy world and messing around with these really goofy weapons. And, like you're talking about this bullet slowdown, bullet ricochet. Oh, it just sounds so damn cool.
All right, well, let's slow down. I don't want you to get too excited just yet. I'm going to read off a couple more things from these previews. And by the way, wow, best comment ever so far of the night from Fez D. Our buddy Fez, he had this to say: would it be too much if I said Ben's voice is pretty damn soothing? Wow. Man, I don't know.
I don't think it would be too much, Fez.
I think it sounds ridiculous. I wouldn't want Ben to read me a bedtime story, that's for sure. All right, let's move on with from these previews. This is some other stuff that they added. Shotguns, pistols, and an enemy-seeking rifle all had kick and feedback to them that I maybe wasn't expecting from the studio behind The Witcher. It seems slower than something like Borderlands, but definitely faster than Deus Ex, and using abilities in conjunction with your guns clearly seemed important. So, again, we're hearing some more descriptions of Deus Ex. In my opinion, Deus Ex is one of the best games out there this gen. I love Deus Ex Mankind Divided. It was an awesome game. I love the gameplay of Deus Ex games. You can go in guns blazing if you want, or if you want to be stealthy. But it does sound like the shooting mechanics are much better than what's in Deus Ex, which is an area I thought was a little bit lacking because I always played stealthy. And if you went in guns blazing, you could kind of feel it wasn't as strong as it needed to be as a first-person game. Go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I remember because that was another thing I kept seeing was people kind of pointing and criticizing Deus Ex's gunplay, but I'm almost positive I remember seeing an interview somewhere where they deliberately didn't want to have really refined shooting mechanics because they want you to play Deus Ex as a stealth game.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And that makes sense because when you play it stealthily, it's a hell of a rewarding game. It's super fun to play the way because it forces you to find every area on the map because that's the beauty of Deus Ex is there's so many different ways to infiltrate buildings or find secret areas. There's so many ways that you can move around the map, and I think that's what they were trying to get people to do. So another thing they talked about, you take quests, talk to NPCs with branching dialogue options, and explore an open world only limited by your street cred value, which can be increased by doing jobs or even putting on sweet-looking clothes, like a leather jacket that had a 5% increase to street cred in addition to other stats. You'll be playing as a mercenary cyberpunk named V, a bespoke character that you can customize to be male or female and deck out with tats, electronics, and all sorts of other outfits befitting the game's name. You also assign points to 6 stats, most which are from the original Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop game: strength, constitution, intelligence, reflexes, tech, and cool. That's the last one is cool. I dig that. That's pretty sweet. Instead of picking up a class archetype, you get to customize and specialize as you see fit during the game, making your own class of sorts. You get to customize V's backstory as well, and instead of more typical options you might expect, there are questions like picking your childhood hero. So if John McClane isn't on that list, I'm going to be pissed. And there's also driving mechanics in this game. You can drive in it. It's not totally clear how big Night City is, but its streets were at least sprawling enough to hop into what looked like a futuristic Lambo and get in a mobile gunfight. The AI companion took the wheel as V leaned out the window and shot people out of a van in front of them. It was tense, though this map doesn't look nearly as open or free for driving like it is Grand Theft Auto 5. So we got a lot of information about, what types of guns you can use, the types of abilities. Oh, Frankie's getting hot over there. I'm going to come back to you right away, Frankie. What's your take, man? Talk to me about this stuff that I'm telling you, coming from the developer of The Witcher 3, a game that you love, but now it's going to play like a Deus Ex or a Borderlands game. Where are you at, dude?
Oh my God, dude, this game just sounds freaking amazing. We've heard them talking about the world before. We know this is the biggest world that they've created. The Witcher 3 was already huge, so imagining that this is a world big enough where you're going to be able to drive around, get into these crazy gunfights while you're driving. God damn, that sounds awesome. I know another concern with I know JD and I talked a lot about this, but we were worried that CD Projekt Red might kind of lean more into kind of trying to appease the more socially acceptable norms a lot of developers are going for nowadays. Mm-hmm. So knowing that you can create your own character and just knowing like the different abilities, I can't wait to just be so damn cool in that game. You know what I'm saying? But no, I have everything I'm hearing about this game. It just sounds freaking awesome. I just really hope that they're not getting it over their heads.
All right. Bender, you in real life, you're at like 99 points and cool. What's your thoughts on this system and everything else that you've heard? I mean, now, obviously, The Witcher 3 is an ultra-violent game, and I know it's something that you really got into or even were interested in. But what's your thoughts on this, man? Cyberpunk, sci-fi, lots of RPG elements. Any interest in this, dude?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting interested in it. There's a very intriguing trailer that they showed. These details sound really cool from everything we're hearing. I like the idea of customizing a character and having different, probably cybernetic parts you can use to give you different abilities and stuff like that. Sounds really cool. To be able to have street cred and cool points and all that stuff sounds awesome. So yeah, I'm definitely getting intrigued by this game for sure.
Awesome. Well, Boyce, I want to come to you now. I know you're a big fan of RPGs, and I know you've always been intrigued by The Witcher 3, and I know that you're probably hoping that George Perlis is a childhood hero you can choose in this game. I want to get your overall thoughts on everything we learned from this man and what we saw from, obviously, the trailer that just showed the setting of it. What's your take on everything that we've heard about Cyberpunk 2077?
Yeah, the trailer was cool when it came out. It was a cool way to end the Microsoft press conference. But we didn't see any gameplay or anything in there. It was just like it was a trailer. All right, that was cool. But the real excitement for this game comes afterwards, where you start to see the people talk about what they saw in the demo and what they're experiencing and this kind of stuff. And like you guys have mentioned, all this stuff sounds really cool. Like they talk about wall running and jumping down and slicing people's heads off from above and just all this crazy sounding stuff. I read Eurogamer's write up of their progression through the story mission that they got to see, the 50-minute demo or whatever it was, and all the different choices that come into play in that mission and how the different scenarios can play out. Sounds really, really cool. I love cyberpunk stuff. This whole world seems like something that I would really dig. But just seeing people get excited about this game, and a number of outlets have given this their game of the show And it was a game that only had a behind closed door demo that none of us even got to see. There was a video that came out on YouTube. It was like 12 seconds long with some guy like sneaking like a cell phone picture of like what the world looked like.
Yeah.
It looked like a big world, just from the shot that he showed. So, I'm definitely excited to see what it's all about. But I mean, just like reading through some of the stuff that people are saying, man, it's just like, I mean, like Andrew Reiner, Cyberpunk 2077 is like rock star levels of open world craziness. Beautiful, detailed, choice everywhere. Gunplay is wicked. Can run on walls, plant into them with blades, drop onto foes, slice their heads off. Slow time. Use
Oh, my.
mods to control bots. Wow, wow, wow. You've got John Linneman from Digital Foundry. Cyberpunk 2077 is legit. I can't even imagine this being current gen. Like, holy shit! It's like Deus Ex plus Crisis plus The Witcher at a scale and level of detail that I've never seen. It's the kind of game I've dreamt of for ages. That was a hell of an hour. It just keeps going on from there. Jason Schreier, just watch the Cyberpunk live gameplay demo. Super impressive. Deus Ex with better shooting. The Witcher 3's branching quests and GTA driving. Sign me up. And we got Ryan McCaffrey. Just saw 45 minutes of Cyberpunk 2077. I think any worry over it being first person will disappear once everyone sees it running for themselves. It's built as an impressive first person world. Very impressive. Think of it not like The Witcher, but a super next gen Deus Ex. And then Jeff Kanata, the world in Cyberpunk is mind blowing. Very Fifth Element. No load times ever. All seamless. That's one of the things they talked about. There's no load times in this world. It's insane. Surprised that the game evokes Deus Ex and Fallout much more than The Witcher. So it's like when you read stuff like that and you hear people talk about this game in the way that they're talking about it, like how do you not get excited about the prospects of what this game could be? So I don't think we're close to a release date. I think, like I've said before, this is very much the cap to this generation. Like this is a 2020 game that sends off the PS4 and the Xbox One in style. But yeah, it's very exciting, all the stuff that I'm reading and hearing about this game, and can't wait to see more of it, actually see the gameplay for myself.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right, boys, because the CD Projekt Red has come out and said they're targeting these consoles right now. So that tells me that, yeah, they're looking at the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and this will be like the ultimate final game. The swan song for those things is going to be this RPG that's just going to blow people away. And yeah, man, I hear about Deus Ex and I hear about Borderlands and I hear about all this crazy shit you can do in the game, and it just, yeah, I think Frankie's not wearing pants anymore. I think they got so tight he's just sitting there with nothing on. So good for him. Make sure your camera does not tilt down, buddy. So lots of good stuff regarding CD Projekt Red. Obviously, I wish we could have seen more. I mean, we got to see a beautiful world, and they nailed it when I can't remember who had mentioned it, but they talked about how looking very Fifth Element. That's immediately what I saw, or what I thought when I saw that trailer. I was like, this looks a lot like the world in the Fifth Element, which I'm totally cool with because the Fifth Element is an awesome movie. So very, very, very cool stuff. We're gonna move on to a topic we'll talk about briefly. It's something that's kind of blown up this week, but so obviously Fortnite came out on the Nintendo Switch, and it was very popular. It downloaded like 2 million times in the first 24 hours. So everyone was really excited to play Fortnite on the Nintendo Switch. I was excited. I was like, hey, I'll try it out. I played it on the PS4. I'm going to try it out. So I log into it and I download it and I go to log in and it's like, hey, you can't use this account. And I didn't think anything of it at first. I just seen that, you can't log into it. But if you look closely, here's the response people were getting. This Fortnite account is associated with a platform which does not allow it to operate on Switch. Neither the Fortnite website nor Epic customer service are able to change this. To play Fortnite on Switch, please create a new account. Oops. So we're going to go back and we're going to talk about how Sony has in place this. They're just not interested in doing crossplay. And I want to get you guys' thoughts on this because I think this, I understand why they don't want to do crossplay. Okay, I get it. And we'll talk about the response here in a moment. I don't think it needed a response, but not this type of response. But I understand why they don't want to do crossplay. Okay, yeah, they're the leader in the house. They've got, it's almost 2-to-1 worldwide in terms of them and Xbox One, and I get that. And they don't want to. They want to just let their community play together. They don't want to open up PSN. It was something similar last gen, only vice versa. And so now, here's what Sony's response was. We're always open to hearing what the PlayStation community is interested in to enhance their gaming experience. Fortnite is already a huge hit with PS4 fans, offering a true free-to-play experience so gamers can jump in and play online. With 79 million PS4 sold around the world and more than 80 million monthly active users on PlayStation Network, we've built a huge community of gamers who can play together on Fortnite and all online titles. We also offer Fortnite crossplay with PC, Mac, iOS, and Android devices, expanding the opportunity for Fortnite fans on PS4 to play with even more gamers on other platforms. End quote. Okay. Basically what they're saying there is, hey, look, we got a bunch of people, just play with them. And I get that part of it. Okay, I get the crossplay. They don't want to do crossplay. My issue with this is when you're logging into your Epic account, that has nothing to do with playing online. This has to do with accessing your progression, the money you spent on V-Bucks, and all that jazz, all the cosmetic stuff. My issue with this is that has nothing to do with crossplay. You should be able to access that account to access the stuff that you've paid for. And I mean, I get the whole, well, if you have it on PlayStation 4, if people only play on PlayStation 4, it doesn't affect them. That's great. But other people own more than one console. And other people have spent a lot of money on Fortnite. They shouldn't be punished to sign up for Fortnite on Switch so they can play it on the go simply because they have a PSN account. I think that's weak. If you want to do the crossplay thing, you don't want to crossplay, that's fine. I don't give a shit. You can keep the crossplay. If I want to play Fortnite with people on Xbox, I'll go play it on my Xbox One. If I want to play with PSN people, I don't have an issue with crossplay. But when you lock out an account where people have put money into it, buying V-Bucks, and built progression up, and they can't transfer that over, I'm sorry, that's weak as hell. And I don't like that response that they gave to that. The PlayStation community is interested in enhancing that gameplay experience, and you better hear everybody bitching about it because PlayStation 4, there are PS4 owners that have more than one console, and Sony needs to recognize that. If you want to allow crossplay, that's fine, but they better open up the access to this account because that's bullshit. Boyce, I want to come to you because I know you're with me, man. You don't really care for the crossplay. That doesn't really bother you. But, man, tell me, this is weak, dude, this response and not letting people access that, right? I mean, that's weak, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, and that statement was given to the BBC, so I have a sinky feeling that Jim Ryan was behind that from Sony's European arm. So that was a statement that had to come from Sony Europe, so I imagine he was the voice for that. Sounds like his handiwork. Yep. But yeah, I'm still a little confused by this whole situation. I don't understand why the account locks out stuff. I don't know how Epic accounts work or how they're all set up or whatnot. I don't know why there can't be some kind of resolution so people can bring their progress over if that's the way the account works. Like I don't really get it. But yeah, I agree with you. I understand, like, if you're a PlayStation fan who has this game and you want to play it on your Switch, like yeah, of course you're pissed about that. So I get it. I'm with you guys, and so just keep speaking your mind, and eventually, hopefully, Sony hears this and does something about it. But the other side of this coin is the people like clamoring for crossplay and that stuff. Like it's just not happening. Like Sony is very bullish on this right now. They are not interested in crossplay with Xbox or Nintendo. So I just don't think that that's going to happen this generation at all. So don't hold your breath for that. Probably not in the cards. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I hopefully they can do something with the Epic account, but I just don't see them doing anything with crossplay. And this is just for whatever reason, like this is their stance on this. And at the end of the day, man, we talk about this, but these are businesses. These are like business decisions, and they don't want to do this for business reasons, and it's just what it is. But as far as the Epic account, I don't understand why they can't get that working. Hopefully they can come to some kind of resolution on that.
Frankie, I want to get your thoughts on this, man.
if it were me, and it's Fortnite, so I really don't care because I'm not a Fortnite player. But I think of things like Rocket League, and on the developer end, the Rocket League devs want crossplay. They want players to all be playing against each other, and I don't personally have a problem with that at all. Um, but the Fortnite thing, like the thing that brought it to my attention was Greg Miller actually tweeting about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like you're at a point now where Nintendo, like the company's still stuck in like the late 90s, is doing crossplay with Xbox. Nintendo, so the fact that, Sony is the only one who is not willing to embrace this. And if I'm a player, like Greg Miller was mentioning, like, if Xbox is going to be more friendly with, my other consoles because they're conscious of the fact that I own more than one console, I'm going to be more likely to start buying games in that ecosystem, knowing that I'm going to be able to, if I decide tonight, oh, well, I don't feel like, like Jen has the TV tonight. All right, I'll grab the Switch and go play Fortnite on the couch on my Switch. Having that option for my game, like that's something that like I said, if I were into that, that would be a huge selling point for me. So the fact that Sony is continuing to just let Jim Ryan call the shots on this, apparently, we're hitting a point where it just let it happen. It does, you guys, you did great. You won. This generation's almost at a close. Just let it happen.
And see, and that's like I said, crossplay doesn't matter to me because I have all three consoles. But for the people that don't, I can understand. It just seems weird that they're so concerned about opening up to Xbox and Nintendo because they have a lead. Dude, you're up almost 2-1. There's probably 2 years left in the generation. And you have still an incredibly strong first-party lineup of games coming. PlayStation Plus has been going very strong with a lot of good titles being added. What the hell could they possibly be afraid of? Is there really a concern that if they open up crossplay and you can play with your friends on other systems, are they somehow going to lose that lead? I'm sorry, like we've mentioned 100 times, this thing is over in terms of sales. It's over in terms of sales. And if Epic can go on there and just crossplay happened to work one night and it works that seamless, dude, it just seems like this is petty at this point. I don't have any need for it, but I understand why people want it that maybe only have a PS4 or only have a PC and they want to or a Nintendo Switch or an Xbox and their buddies are on another platform. Sony will not lose anything if they turn this on. They literally won't. They have a strong first-party lineup that's going to sell systems. It's the PS Plus is strong. That's going to sell systems, and it's just PlayStation is a strong brand right now. It's going to sell systems. And I mean, how many more can you really sell at this point? If you got next gen 2 years away and you're already at 80 million, there's only so many people in the world that can afford a console. So I mean, it's just like at this point, you're not going to lose anything. You're not going to lose the market share. It's just I don't know, man. Am I wrong, boys? I mean, I just feel like this is to the point where I think they could just do it, kind of get back on the good side of gamers going into next gen. I just feel like this is something they can afford to do.
No, you're not wrong at all, man. And it's I just go back to this. This is just a reminder that video games are a business. Like Sony is a business, Microsoft is a business, Nintendo is a business, and sometimes as a business they make decisions we don't like. So Nintendo, has a Pokemon locked away in a $50 Pokeball. Like, is that like consumer friendly stuff? Like we've been asking for achievements on that system for a while. Been asking for like an online system. Been asking for your eShop purchases to carry over between purchases and that kind of stuff. Like this is all stuff that we've been asking for. And sometimes these companies, they make business decisions we don't like. Same thing with Microsoft. Like they cancel Scalebound or Fable Legends, and people get upset about that stuff. And the launch of the Xbox One was a disaster from a PR standpoint. So the way you change this stuff is you keep talking about it. So we get out there and we keep talking about this. Eventually, Sony has to do something about this. Like if their fans are loud enough, and if they don't like this decision that they're making, like keep speaking about this, keep getting out there, keep beating the drum for this, and eventually, hopefully, somebody will hear this. It will make a move on this. But this is to me, this is just a reminder that these are businesses, and these decisions are not always in the best interest of the consumer. It's in the best interest of what they think from a business perspective is going to benefit them. And as consumers, like we need to exercise our right to continue to fight against some of these decisions and get them to reverse course on this if we see fit.
Yep. In a perfect. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Frankie.
Oh, I was going to say this is also the thing I was concerned about coming into this generation. I feel like when a company like Xbox or PlayStation at the end they have a commanding lead, they start to get complacent. And this to me is like an early sign of Sony being at that point. Like you're at a point now where you're not listening to your consumers, and this has been an outcry the entire week. So that for them to just continue to be like, yeah, whatever, we don't care, we're number one, whatever. That's not the kind of publicity you want around you, especially if you're going to be launching a new console very soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to remember too that there's new leadership at Sony as well. So we don't know like how this group operates or how they're going to tackle things like this. They have a John Cadera, who I believe is Japanese. I believe he's from Japan. He's running the company now. So we know that they're a little bit quirky in some of the ways that they view business and the way that they see things. So, this could be an entirely different ballgame with him heading up things now. We don't know like how he's going to approach this kind of stuff. So I think that's another like wrinkle on top of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Bender, any final thoughts on anything, man, with the Fortnite issue?
I agree with you. Everything you guys have said. I'm not too interested in crossplay myself because, like you said, I have all three consoles, so I can play with whoever I want.
Mm-hmm.
But I absolutely agree that the thing you were saying about the account system itself and the locking out the people who bought, spend money on cosmetic stuff, and they should absolutely be able to access that on the other consoles.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah,
hopefully that's something that they'll fix at least.
Yeah, that's my biggest issue with it, because there are people that spent money. They should be able to get access to that. That has absolutely nothing to do with crossplay, nothing at all, and that needs to be rectified. That Sony and Epic need to work something out, because clearly it says on this description, when you sign in, the Fortnite account associated with a platform which does not allow it to operate on Switch. That says it right there. The Fortnite account is associated with the platform which does not allow it to operate on Switch. So Sony has a firm block on anything transferring over to another system, which I think in this case this is wrong. I feel like this is really weak, and this needs to be addressed quickly on Sony's behalf. Crossplay, I don't care, but this needs to be addressed. So, all right, a couple more things we want to talk about, and then we're going to get into our top 10 games of E3. Boys, when it comes to E3, there's always games that don't show up that we kind of were thinking, hey, why weren't these here? What's going on? And let's talk about a couple of these games, man. You picked out a couple here, and obviously the first one I know you want to talk about because it was something we were really hoping that we'd see at E3.
Yeah, man. I really had my heart set on Rocksteady coming out and showing us what their next title was going to be. Of course, they didn't, and of course, fans across the world were shattered that they didn't see what Rocksteady's next title is. But Sefton Hill, who's a game director and co-founder at Rocksteady Studios, actually came out and addressed this via Twitter. So he said, "Hi all, I wanted to share a quick message from me and the Rocksteady team. We know some of you were disappointed that we were not at E3 this year. The whole team has been reading your comments, and all of us here at Rocksteady really appreciate your passion for our next project. Knowing how much it means to you keeps us inspired and energized to deliver a game that you will be proud of. We'll share it with you as soon as it's ready. And yes, we are working on Superman." No, that's not in there, but that, but yeah, that's Sefton's message. So basically, he's like, sorry we weren't there, but we had nothing to show you. That's basically what it was all about. So it's disappointing, man. But well, I mean, we're getting deep in the generation here. So if they haven't revealed their game at this point, I'm wondering if maybe we even see it this generation. Like maybe it's a next gen title at this point. But yeah, I'm really disappointed. I was hoping we would see a Superman game from Rocksteady, but guess gotta wait another year, man. Hope it shows up.
What else we got on this list that we didn't see?
Metroid Prime 4. So I mean, I personally wasn't expecting to see this, but many fans were wondering like what's going on with Metroid. Like, could we get an update on it? So I know IGN reached out to Reggie, and Reggie had this to say: Metroid Prime 4 is in development, progressing well. Sorry. he also explained that last year's Metroid announcement was actually a bending of Nintendo's traditional intention for an E3 Direct, which is to focus on titles coming in the near future. So there are times where we'll bend that strategy for unique situations, like Metroid Prime 4 last year, but mostly we want to focus on the here and now. Reggie said, "We don't believe in the fans. It's in the fans' best interest to tease them year after year after year after year about a piece of content. We want to say, here it is, here's when it's coming, and get ready for it." So, um, Reggie obviously very good at saying nothing about anything. So he's the master of like giving us these responses that literally tell us nothing. So I mean, as anticipated, Metroid Prime, nowhere near ready for prime time yet, but sounds like along nicely according to Reggie.
Interesting. All right. So we had those titles. We also had a couple other. One I wanted to mention is where the hell was Splinter Cell? We all thought maybe we'd see some Splinter Cell, but it turns out, I guess, it's just the Ghost Recon Wildlands edition that we got. The special event is the only Splinter Cell we're going to get this year or next. Because literally nothing. I mean, we were really hoping at the end of the Ubisoft presser there'd be that one more thing. You'd hear Michael Ironside narrating something going on screen, and boom, there we'd get a Splinter Cell. We didn't get anything, and that was easily probably the most disappointing thing for me is not seeing Splinter Cell.
Yeah, I thought that was a slam dunk. I thought Splinter Cell was like a slam dunk for this E3. We saw it in the Walmart leak too.
Yep.
It showed up in that list. So I really thought, I was like, yeah, I'm almost guaranteed like that's the one more thing at Ubisoft. They're going to roll out Sam Fisher again and show us what's been going on with him and Ironside, but not a peep. Not a single peep on Splinter Cell.
Couple of games that probably would have made the Square Enix press conference better, Frankie, would have been maybe the Avengers game or Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, for sure. But hey, like the fact that we now know that they're finally full speed ahead on Final Fantasy, I'm fine with them not showing it. It's like with Death Stranding. I honestly, by the time that game comes out, I'm gonna be tired of hearing about it. I just have a feeling they keep rolling Kojima out on stage. So the fact that they're kind of still being pretty quiet about Final Fantasy, I'm okay with. The Avengers, I really only wanted for my point, but I understand.
And Bender, we found out first we didn't see it, and then we found out Yoshi got delayed until 2019. Man.
Oh, did we? I didn't even hear that.
Yep, it has been delayed, but obviously we were kind of hoping maybe we see something on the Direct regarding Yoshi. Instead, we got 30, 45 minutes of Smash Bros. And Yoshi barely showed up in that.
Yeah, yep. It was scary there for a minute.
There's also still no confirmation on what Retro's been working on.
Oh, that's true. We didn't hear anything on Retro.
Yeah, that's right. That Star Fox game didn't show up.
Yeah. Star Fox had to show up at Ubisoft's press conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Interesting. So those were the games that we kind of were wondering, hey, where the hell are you? But they never showed up, and that's disappointing. But hey, there's always PSX or E3 next year. We'll have to wait and see what's going on. But all right,
you know what my glaring omission was?
What's
sorry,
that? No,
I
you're
have
good.
to add this. But you remember a couple months ago when somebody mentioned there was a Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare 3?
I do.
He could have livened up. EA could have had an actual show that meant something to someone if that was there.
Didn't that show up in a comic book or something?
Yeah.
Where was that?
An Amazon comic book that mentioned it was tied to the events of Garden Warfare 3.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, like I said, I don't think anything could have saved EA's press conference. So
you're right. That one.
All right. So now that we got some of the news out of the way, let's talk about our top 10 games of E3. So what we did is all four of us compiled our top 10 lists of the games that we saw at E3, and then we used a special point system, 1 through 10, for each title, and then whatever the total points were for each title, then we were able to rank our top 10 based on that. So, first up, we're going to go to Bender Holt and have him reveal his top 10. Bender.
Oh, you want me to go through my whole top 10?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Am I talking about any of these as I go?
Whatever ones you want to. Start from 10 and work your way up.
Okay. We didn't really discuss finalize that before. Okay, so my number 10 is The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. I chose that because I really like Don't Nod. I love Life is Strange, and I'm really intrigued to see what they come up with for that. So that's number 10. My number 9 is Sea of Solitude. Thought that looked really cool. Those EA originals have been on point so far. They've been really good, so definitely interested in that one. My number 8 is Beyond Good and Evil 2. Even though we still haven't seen any gameplay for it, I thought that was a really cool trailer. I am looking forward to seeing more about that game. It was good to see Paige and Jade again in the trailer, so that was cool. My number 7 is Ghost Giant. That wasn't actually revealed in the E3 press conference, but the PlayStation, it was one of the ones they revealed leading up to the press conference for PlayStation. It's a PSVR game where you're in a little town of animals and you actually help them out. It's like Animal Crossing, but it's in first person. You're in the world helping them and they talk to you. Looks really cool. My number 6 is Unravel 2. I thought that looked awesome. Can't wait to play with Yarny again. It's already out. I just haven't had a chance to play it yet. I thought that was cool that they said it was out now. Number 5 is Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Thought that was a cool trailer, and I can't wait for that game. My number 4 is Control. I thought that was a really cool, really cool trailer, and I'm really intrigued by that game. I loved Quantum Break, so I can't wait to see what Control is going to be like. My number 3 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, or Smash Bros. Ultimate, whatever it's called. Thought they can't wait to play that. Thought they showed some cool stuff. I love that every character is back. My number 2 is Anthem.
Whoa!
Even though I know you guys said you weren't really impressed by what they showed, I'm still super stoked for that game. So it's just way up there for me. And my number 1 is Spider-Man, of course. I thought the demo they showed for Spider-Man was amazing, incredible, awesome, all those
spectacular,
spectacular,
sensational,
ultimate. Yeah, it was really cool. Just the fluid of movement, the action, the different moves they showed off, all that stuff looked amazing. I can't wait to play Spider-Man. So that's my game of the show.
All right, fine choices there. I'm gonna go next. All right, my top 10 games of E3. Number 10, Tom Clancy's The Division 2. The fact that this is a Tom Clancy game, I love their military shooters in terms of how they play, and the fact this is going to have 8-player raids. It's free DLC. This is an easy game for me to jump into. Even if you guys don't pick it up, the fact that it's all free DLC and I can try out 8-player raids, and it's going to have the same tight gameplay that we saw, really excited about The Division 2. I think that's going to be a pretty good game. Number 9, Gears of War 5. We saw the trailer. We saw Kate is going to be the focal point of this one. She's a badass. And I really like playing through Gears of War 4, especially when I played with Frankie. The cooperative element is really, really fun to play that game cooperatively. So I'm looking forward to that element. And then I like the end of the trailer where Kate kind of questioned Dell. So maybe we'll have a story that's a little bit more than just shit, damn, and just all this stuff. Maybe we'll have some depth here. We don't know who's who or who's on whose side. So I thought that was a really cool touch at the end of the trailer, kind of maybe give you a story that's going to be a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit deeper. So Gears of War 5. Number 8, Skulls and Bones. That game looked absolutely nuts. Really, really liked what we saw from the gameplay trailer. Even with the over-the-top announcer, it just fit well with the combat that was going on screen. It's going to be an open-world game. There's going to be a lot of stuff to explore, seamlessly work with people or attack them. And I love the fact that when like the one thing that we saw, they took down that one ship and then a powerful ship showed up that had a ton of loot on it, and you had to work with the other people around the area to take it down. But then when you took it down, it was kind of like, all right, who gets the loot? And then you kind of battled out. So it looked very beautiful. I love the fact that you can customize all the ships. That part of it is very appealing too. So it kind of gives the ships a little bit of an RPG element. And so I really like that. This next one, number 7, it was tough to put Cyberpunk 2077 on the list simply because we only saw a kind of a story trailer, like a setting trailer, but it was everything that we got out of the previews that really just had me hyped and excited for it. So I don't mind putting it on this list. That's why I put it a little bit lower, because if we would have saw gameplay, it probably would have wiped out this entire. It would have been just Cyberpunk 2077 1 through 10. So I'm really, really excited for that game. I want to actually see this gameplay that other people got to see, though. But based on the impressions that we've read from multiple outlets, this game's going to be awesome. Number 6, Rage 2. Let Frankie talk about that in a minute, but that game looks insanely fun. Number 5, Spider-Man. Bender pretty much summed up my, why I'm excited about. I know Boyce is going to spend an hour and a half talking about when he gets to it. So number 5, Spider-Man. Number 4, Fallout 76. I'm interested in this because I love the idea of exploring a world that Bethesda creates in Fallout. The Wasteland is always a mysterious but dangerous place. The fact that you can play it with friends is going to be very appealing. We do know that we're still curious what the structure of Fallout 76 is going to be. We found out recently that there will not be any NPCs in the world, so you won't be getting quests. So I'm worried that we're not going to get a structured online experience. It's going to be more like Ark, but I'm holding out hope that this is Fallout and they will have some of that Fallout DNA in there. There will be some type of narrative. So I am curious about that. But the idea of playing with friends in a Fallout universe trying to survive, I think that sounds incredibly appealing. I just hope there's a little bit of structure to it. Number 3, Dying Light 2. This game looked incredible. Dying Light 1 was an awesome game, and during a time when zombie fatigue was a real thing, Dying Light 2 I completely forgot about zombie fatigue. I was into that game. That was an awesome game. The parkour system was fantastic. The combat was fun. The story was a little hokey, but it was still pretty entertaining. The soundtrack was epic. It was almost composed like it was a John Carpenter film. Lots of cool elements to it. Dying Light was a fantastic game. The fact that this one's going to have branching storylines, decisions you make will drastically change the world, and everything else about the game. Co-op's coming back. The nighttime mechanic is coming back. I am really, really excited for Dying Light 2. This was an awesome announcement to have at E3. And number 2, Ghost of Tsushima. I know Frankie will want to talk about that, but the stealth elements. This game is a beautiful looking game. The combat looked epic, and the stealth elements, I'm on board for this. And then number 1, this one was easy. The Last of Us was my favorite game from last gen. Excellent storytelling, excellent voice work, beautiful looking, fantastic soundtrack. The game was aces across the board. I want more of that. I want a meaningful story. I want an emotional story, an impactful story. We got to see that from a gameplay trailer. We got to see Ellie just whooping ass. She should be feared. I love when that at the end of the trailer when her friend says it to her. They're terrified of you. They should be terrified of you. And we saw that in the trailer. So really, really, really excited for The Last of Us Part 2, and that's easily my game of the show.
Nice.
So, moving on. Up next, Frankie Ayler. Your top 10 games, please.
All right. So, there are games I wanted to put on this list. Obviously, Spider-Man would be on here, but I wanted to go for games that were announced after E3 last year and only things that we have seen gameplay for. Those were my requirements for this list. So, Metro, Spider-Man, a ton of these games that were already announced that we've talked about before. Still very, very excited. Them not being on here doesn't mean I'm any less excited, but I'm just putting that out there because there are definitely omissions for this that I would have on here. I just want to give a quick honorable mention to Hollow Knight, just because this is a game I have been looking forward to getting my hands on for a very long time, and the fact that Nintendo came out and were like, hey, it's available right now. That made my day. So shout out to Nintendo and Team Cherry for dropping Hollow Knight on the Switch. All right, so at number 10, I have My Friend Pedro. This is a game that I had watched the Devolver conference the other day because it's that goofy conference. What's really going to be there, and they had some cool announcements. This being one of them, but this is kind of like a 2.5D, like a Max Payne meets Shadow Complex type of game. It's ultra violent. You're running around. You could do all these crazy, like you're slowing down time. You're shooting a frying pan and ricocheting bullets into enemies. It just looks freaking insane. And the funniest part to me is that it's created by an ex-Media Molecule developer. So it's quite the departure there. Um, Up next, I have Hitman 2. This is a game that was kind of hinted at a couple weeks ago, finally formally announced. Dropping the episodic approach this time. There's going to be co-op. And Hitman is still my big shame game I've yet to finish. But Hitman 2, the what they've showed of the Miami location with the race event and the different ways you can kill people. You can kill someone with a fish. Yeah, so very excited about Hitman 2. Number 8, I have Gears of War 5. Basically for all the reasons Brent said, I felt Kate was one of the strongest components of the story of Gears 4. So playing a story surrounded around Kate, I'm excited. Up next, Control. Like Bender had mentioned, Quantum Break was freaking amazing, and this looks like they're kind of taking that concept and growing it from at least the gameplay side. I'm not sure. I'm sure we're not going to see a live action stuff, but Remedy makes some unique games, and Control looks to be no different. Up next, I have Trials Rising. Fusion's a PlayStation Plus game right now, so go download it if you haven't yet. But those games are just notoriously fun, so I really can't wait to get into yet another fun Trials game. Up next, I have Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I was kind of lukewarm on this game before it was coming out, but seeing the actual gameplay and looking like I'm going to be playing out a Predator movie, sign me up. Up next, I have Devil May Cry 5. This one, we've been hearing that this is going to be revealed for months and months and months. So to finally see it come to fruition, I'm excited. I loved, the last Devil May Cry I'd played, so can't wait to get my hands on that one. Number 3, I have Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. It's from Software, and as I'm finding, I'm kind of really interested in playing samurai games. So this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Number 2, unsurprisingly, I'm sure, is Rage 2. We've talked before how much I love the first Rage. This looks like they're really doubling down on just the absolute insane aspects of that game. Just from excuse me, the crafting to just the world itself, and especially the driving. The driving in the first game I felt was very underrated. So I'm really looking forward to experiencing all the stuff they've done. Plus, you have PlayStation 4 Pro or an Xbox One X for targeting 60 frames. Hell yeah. So that I cannot wait for that game to come out. And my number 1 game, I'm sure unsurprising to no one, being that I am like major Sucker Punch fanboy who actually plays the Infamous games, is Ghost of Tsushima.
You watch your mouth.
But kind of in contrast to Shadows Die Twice, which seems much more action focused, a little more fast paced. Ghost of Tsushima has that more cinematic approach to its combat situations. It looks like I'm honestly not expecting a ton of moment to moment combat in this game. I feel like this game's going to be much more exploration based, much more character storytelling than encountering random enemies. Like, this seems like a game where when you get into battle, it's going to be a meaningful part of the story, part of what you're experiencing in this game. It doesn't seem like this is something that is going to be every 10 minutes you're going to be fighting all these guys. Like, the gameplay we saw and watching how cinematic it was, and especially at the end when he's fighting Masako, I think her name was, just the way the camera pans back, the just the pure beauty in that scene alone, and the scenery, the combat. That game just looks like it's going to be something very special. And the thing that was really cool to me was, I was reading up on a lot of the post conference stuff. That was actually a side mission. Like, the whole showdown with Masako is just a side quest.
Man.
So I'm super excited for Ghost of Tsushima. I honestly, I'll be surprised if that's this gen. A lot of these games, honestly, like, I would not be surprised if, like, The Last of Us, Ghost, Death Stranding, if those are PlayStation 5 titles, I would not be surprised. Just watching this game in motion, watching everything, everything in the environment, all these little minor details, it just blows my mind if this is like a current gen PlayStation 4 title. Ugh, love you, Sucker Punch.
Oh boy, Frankie's hot and bothered again. All right, and that brings us up to our final top 10 list, Mr. Boyce.
That's me. So I will. I'll bring it home, as they say, Brent.
Yes, sir.
So obviously with these lists, like we're not at E3, like we're not going hands on with these games. We're not in the closed door session. So it's very difficult to construct these lists because everything looks really cool from the outside, like looking in. Like it's a lot of fun watching E3 as a fan and seeing all the cool games that are on the horizon. So this was a very, very difficult list to construct for me. I was pretty comfortable with the number of games on the list, but like the bottom half of my list, I could have easily swapped out like 15 or 20 other titles for the ones that are in here. So there's a lot of like really cool looking stuff this year. But this is what I settled on. So real quick, I wanna give an honorable mention to Destiny 2 because I was still considering putting this on the list, but I'm like, man, I've been playing this game every day like for the last year. Like I really don't need to put this on the list. But everything we saw from Forsaken was awesome. The story trailer was awesome. The Gambit gameplay was awesome. Reading about all the reactions from the community and people that were there playing it was really exciting. So I cannot wait for Forsaken when that drops on September 4th. But let's get into the proper list. So at number 10, I have Skull and Bones. So Brent, you mentioned it on your list, but this looks like it could be the deeper like pirate experience that we were all hoping that Sea of Thieves could would be or could eventually become. It looks like Skull and Bones may in fact be that from day one. So I'm excited to see what that's all about, to see how the combat and the customization and the quest system and the story, like all that comes together in here, and if this is indeed going to be the pirate experience that we're all jonesing for. At number 9, I have Sekiro. So Frankie mentioned Sekiro. I thought this trailer was awesome. Game looks really cool. Has Onimusha vibes. It's got Dark Souls vibes. So like combining those two games into one. Obviously, From is responsible for Tenchu as well. So they've got some of these samurai games in their blood. So I like what we've seen from Sekiro. It's got some Ninja Gaiden vibes in there as well with some of the enemies that you're fighting. So I thought this trailer looked awesome. And if the action and the combat remains fast paced and responsive, like this looks like it's going to be a really fun, really challenging game. At number 8, I have My Friend Pedro, as Frankie brought up. Wish I would have moved Pedro up a little bit to get him a few more points, maybe get him onto our final list. Doesn't look like he's going to make the cut, but yeah, I love what we've seen from this game, man. It looks super fun, just totally over the top, like Max Payne 2D side-scrolling game. I mean, the bullet time stuff looks excellent. The just the flipping around. I gotta find the description that these guys described Pedro as, because it's hilarious. I actually wrote it down on my phone. But the way these guys describe this game when they're talking about it. So I think this was the game director, but he was like, "My Friend Pedro is a violent ballet about friendship, imagination, and one man's struggle to obliterate anyone in his path at the behest of a sentient banana." So I mean, if that doesn't sound awesome, like I don't know what does. But yeah, the banana is kind of like Deadpool. Like it's just this crazy, like over the top banana that's driving you along. And yeah, we saw a variety of missions in this game. Sometimes you're on a skateboard, sometimes you're on a motorcycle. There's just crazy levels in this game. This game looks wicked. I cannot wait for My Friend Pedro. I'll definitely be there on day one for that. It's a future indie spotlight game right there. At number 7, the Resident Evil 2 remake. I thought this looked awesome. So the reveal trailer was cool. We saw that it was really dramatic, seeing Leon and finding out exactly that was the Resident Evil 2 game. But afterwards, I saw a gameplay demo on I think it was the PlayStation Live stage. They played a gameplay demo for like 10-15 minutes. Thought it looked excellent. Graphically looks exceptional. This game appears to retain the horror elements that Resident Evil 2 had, and it heightens them with just the look of it and the enhanced graphical prowess that they're putting into this game. So I really, really like what I've seen from Resident Evil 2 Remake. I think that's going to be an excellent version of that game when it releases. At number 6, I have Rage 2. So I've never played the first Rage, but this game looked absolutely awesome. Just over the top. I mean, really over the top. just with what we saw in the reveal trailer. So we saw the game announced prior to E3, but then the lengthy trailer that we got at the Bethesda press conference, I thought was probably the best thing we saw during that entire show. The shotgun looks incredible. I can't wait to get my hands on that thing and just start ripping through people. But yeah, I thought Rage 2 had a really, really strong showing. This next one might be a bit controversial for the same reasons that you mentioned, Brent, but I have Cyberpunk here at number 5, and I just the reveal trailer was cool, but just reading everything after this about this game, like, it just gets you excited about it, and reading about like what happens in this mission, in this world that they're constructing. That was basically what I based my list on, or like what games are getting me excited the most from what we saw at E3. And Cyberpunk was up there for all the reasons that we've already talked about on the show. At number 4, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I'm a huge Smash Brothers fan. Smash Brothers Ultimate looks awesome. I mean, it's got every Smash Brothers character ever. It's got tons of stages, tons of support characters, tons of everything that we love about Smash Brothers. Cannot wait to play that game. I have my my GameCube controller adapter ordered. I got my new GameCube controller ordered, so I'm ready to go for Smash Brothers when it arrives at the beginning of December. At number 3, Ghost of Tsushima. You guys have already talked about this, Frankie. You went into a lot of it when you talked about it, but the game looks absolutely stunning. Just an incredible looking title. And I love the breadth of variety that we saw in the gameplay reveal for it. So we saw at one point, just riding a horse through a beautiful vista in the open world. Next, we saw stealth gameplay. Then we saw just combat against a group of enemies. Then we saw a one-on-one duel. Then we saw all these different aspects of the game in what you said was just a side mission. So I can only imagine like what the main game proper is going to be. The story looks like it's going to be epic, but yeah, this one had a stunning showing. Can't wait to see more from Ghost of Tsushima. At number 2, The Last of Us Part 2. This reveal was awesome. I mean, it just looked stunning. So the animations, the whole sequence that played out was just brutal. Like you mentioned, Brent, The Last of Us, an extremely special game. It's probably the best game I've ever played, or one of them. So I cannot wait for part 2 of this game to come out. And I thought the showing here was just stunning in the trailer that we got to see. So that means at number 1, I once again have Spider-Man. So I just I don't know what else to say about this game, man. It's just every time they show us something for this, I mean, the whole set piece they showed. If this game is just a series of set pieces like the ones we've seen at the last 2 E3s, like, I'm going to be extremely happy with this game. We saw some of the things about the open world and swinging through the city, but as a long-time comic book fan, with Spider-Man as one of my favorites, just everything we've seen from this game is just incredibly, incredibly exciting. Cannot wait to get my hands on this game on September 7th. But Spider-Man takes the top slot once again, seeing all of those great villains in a game. It's got me juiced.
Oh, man. Another guy with his pants off. No, I don't know. I'm not too comfortable with the show anymore. All right. So now that we have the lists, we compiled all the numbers. I did the math, so that's awesome.
Yeah. So get your calculator out, because there might be some debate here.
There could be, but I doubt it. Our top 10 games of E3 as a group looks like this. At number 10, with 8 points, Dying Light 2. Yeah.
Snuck into the top 10 there. All right.
Number 9, with 9 points, Anthem. Bender, you got yours in there. Rick says Mrs. Bell would be proud of my math. Yeah, she was a sweet teacher. Number 8 with 10 points, Cyberpunk 2077. Also at 10 points, and at number 7, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Now, the reason it went to number 7 over Cyberpunk is because it received the single highest score from one of us when we put it on the list. I believe it was number 3 on Frankie's list. So and it was tied at 10 points, or with Cyberpunk. Only 2 of wait, am I doing this wrong? No, I'm not doing it wrong.
No, you got it right.
The highest point for Cyberpunk 2077 was 5 on Boyce's list, but it was 3 on Frankie's, so it gets the edge for number 7, Sekiro. Number
It's
oh god.
just so people know. So there's 2 criteria, right, for the ties.
Yes.
So the first thing we're going to do is how many lists it showed up on.
Yep.
So Sekiro and Cyberpunk both showed up on 2 lists. So now we have to go to our next criteria, which is the highest placing on anybody's individual list. So that's why Sekiro takes the spot above Cyberpunk.
He explains it much better than I do. At number 6, Control with 11 points. Number 5 with 15 points, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
We got it on there, Bender.
At number 4, The Last of Us Part 2 with 19 points. At number 3 with 19 points, but it was on 3 lists, Rage 2. Now this was crazy because I told Boyce, I'm like, dude, your list is going to be important. And here's why. Spider-Man finishes at number 2 with 26 points. At number 1 with 27 points, Ghosts of Tsushima.
Wow.
Girl.
Boyce's list gave Ghost just enough to come away with the number 1 spot. So
Thank
that,
you, boys.
Good list. I
yeah,
like that.
it's a solid list, a very strong list, a nice variety of games. So it was pretty intense towards the end. It got real close between Tsushima and Spider-Man. But it was a great list, and it was a lot of fun putting that together because, like, you guys sent me the list. You guys didn't show them to anybody. And as I'm doing the math, I'm like, dude, Boyce's list is going to be big, dude. We're going to see where these fall because it could have easily swapped with Spider-Man had Ghost dropped down 2 spots on his list. So very, very close. Gogol13 in the chat. Here's his list. Spider-Man, Days Gone, Resident Evil 2, Spyro Reignited, and Fist of the North Star were the 5 that really caught my eye and that are each releasing before March, which is a plus. So awesome.
I
awesome list.
almost had Fist and North Star on my list.
Mm-hmm. So
I've been reading some very good things about the Days Gone demo at E3. So sounds like that game showed pretty well there.
Yeah. I forget who it was. I think it was a PlayStation bra, but he had posted forget who was playing it, but it was basically like a horde mode, like a survival horde mode type of thing. So he's like going through planting mines and just trying to survive like an onslaught of 300 freakers, I think it was. So it looked pretty intense.
Nice.
All right. So that brings us to our final segment. Before E3, we had a show, and we talked about our predictions for E3, and Bender was keeping tally, keeping track. And we're going to find out right now who wins this year's E3 predictions. I'm going to go take a dump while you guys do this because I'm irrelevant in this conversation. Mr. Holt.
Time for our final segment. Everybody yells at Bender.
All right, Bender, take us through the predictions
Okay.
results.
First of all, I want to preface this by reminding everyone that Mr. Felsing said that this is an all or nothing year. No partial points, no half points. So if you had a multi-part prediction, if you didn't get all of it, you didn't get any points.
I know.
Thanks, Brent.
Brent would have gotten some more points if he hadn't tried to shoot for release dates. But anyway.
would have gotten points.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with Frankie. So Frankie's first prediction was that the Square Enix would show off the Crystal Dynamics Marvel game. Did not happen. I was really hoping he was right on that.
Me too.
Me three.
He also predicted that EA would announce and show the Respawn Star Wars game. We got a weird audience conversation and a title, but it didn't show anything.
That was really
Barely
lame.
even an
And
That
release
was-
window. Stupid.
That was
Thanks, Brent.
You're
that was
welcome.
that was the dumbest reveal I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, they could have just wait till next year. Don't
Like,
even
what do you
bother.
like? How do you give a crowd reveal for the next Star Wars game from Respawn, and you give us like the release window? And they didn't even have a title screen to show us.
Yeah, nothing.
They didn't have anything.
Stupid. Should have been half a point. Thanks, Brent.
You're welcome.
So Frankie's third prediction was that Capcom was to show and give a release date for the Resident Evil 2 remake. That's a point. Right there. 1 point. Frankie's third prediction was that Oddworld Soulstorm would be at the PlayStation conference. Unfortunately, no, that didn't happen. And finally, from Frankie, Nintendo would show a trailer for Bayonetta 3. No gameplay, no release date, I think is what he said. But we didn't see anything at all for Bayonetta 3. So that's 1 point for Frankie. Let's go ahead and move on to Mr. Felsing.
Yay.
First, Brent predicted that Vanquish 2 would be an Xbox exclusive.
Wow.
Anything from that.
Man, I wish that's one I was really hoping for.
Brent predicted that Nintendo would reveal a Joy-Con with a proper D-pad.
God.
Which this seems more like a Nintendo Direct, like middle of the year type thing. Announcement.
Hey, nobody asked that. Just read out the scores, all right? Just read out the points. Nobody asked for your analysis.
Your third prediction was that the Blue Point remaster was going to be Demon Souls. Damn. We didn't see anything from Blue Point at all.
Jeez.
The third one.
I like when Bender rubs it in like that. He's like you predicted Demon Souls. That thing was nowhere in sight.
Who's Blue Point?
Now, Brent's third prediction was that Xbox would tease Halo 6 with a fall 2019 release date.
Good job.
We saw Halo Infinite, but they didn't give any sort of release window.
God dang it.
Good job.
Halo Infinite, which may or may not be Halo 6.
Yeah, exactly.
We have no idea.
We don't know. Finally, Brent predicted that we would see Crackdown 3, but it was going to be in fall 2018.
God.
And it's not coming out till 2019. I'm sorry, Brent. I can't give you the point.
Damn.
That one is my favorite because Crackdown screwed over both of them.
I know. That's bullshit.
Damn it, Crackdown.
I don't think I can compete in next year's. It's like if you don't make the U.S. Open, you can't play in something else. So, yeah, I'm not going to make it to next year's predictions. Yay me.
Can we give you an award for just going the most years without scoring a single point?
Just like worst predictor ever. I'll wear that around with pride, dude. I'll be pumped about that.
Dude, you should come out next year and just say Sony will announce the PlayStation 6. Just
It'll
Just
be
get
out.
ahead of the
It'll be
curve.
out on the 4th of July. Yeah.
Yeah, Nintendo's going to announce the next Forza Horizon game.
Hey, don't we have some more lists to be going over here? All right, let's go.
We'll do mine next. You can always tell who's going to win because I always do them last. But anyway,
Oh wow.
ooh,
Jeez.
we'll do mine next. I first predicted that the Super Smash Bros. Release date was going to be in September. Wah, wah, wah. I hope it's in December. At least it's this year, at least. I don't know. I also predicted that a new Animal Crossing game would be announced for Switch. It's going to happen eventually. I'm going to will it into existence.
That's okay. The new Animal Crossing's on PlayStation VR.
Yeah, exactly. True. I also predicted that Xbox would announce an exclusive JRPG. Shouldn't have been so specific. I could have said a JRPG that's never been on Xbox before, and I would have gotten a point, but no. I said exclusive. My fourth prediction was that there would be a Life is Strange 2 teaser at the Square conference. Square announced that they teased everything but Life is Strange 2. Like 2 other games that they're working on, neither of them is Life is Strange 2. That's so not fair.
Look, I can help you make a case for this one because they did say that Captain Spirit is set in the universe of Life is Strange 2. That is technically a tease. They did say that this is basically an introduction to the world of Life is Strange 2.
Okay, so if we work that, we're gonna go back and revisit the Halo thing for a point then because
No, because it's still not coming out next fall.
oh whatever, dude. Now we're moving goalposts.
no.
Cool.
No, we're not. No, you did this to yourself.
What'd you
They
learn?
specifically mentioned Life is Strange 2, though. That is technically a tease.
No point. No
Bender's
point.
the judge. I'm just saying, like, if I'm the co-judge on this one, that I would say that's kind of a tease. This entire game is basically a tease.
No point. Moving
I'll
on.
take the point just to get to Felsing.
Wow.
Nah, I still didn't give it to him for Halo. It's not even called Halo 6. It's not coming out next fall. There's nothing right about that prediction.
No, I'm not going to give him a point. I'm just saying I'll take a point just so he'll be the only one with no points.
I mean, I would. Boyce, what do you think? Think
No
Ben should get that point?
point.
I'm gonna say negative on that one.
Yes.
It's a little bit of a stretch.
Yes.
I get where you're going, but it's a little bit of a stretch.
I honestly wasn't going to give myself the point because it wasn't Life is Strange 2. I mean,
Thanks,
just
Jamie.
universe.
Yeah.
What'd Jamie say?
He said, "Great show, guys. I like it live." Thanks, buddy.
Okay. Thanks, Jamie. All right. So anyway, my final prediction was that Pikmin 4 would be revealed, but we didn't.
Thanks a lot, Miyamoto.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That was
Too busy yucking it up at the Ubisoft conference. You couldn't bring back Olimar. What the hell?
I love how our predictions every year basically just says worst E3 ever because none of our things we want to happen come true. Worst E3 ever.
All right. So finally, Mr. Boyce. The
0
first
points.
prediction was that that Rocksteady would reveal a game, involving Superman or the Justice League. We didn't see them at all, unfortunately.
Thanks, Sefton.
The second prediction was that all 4 PS4 Spotlight titles would feature gameplay,
Wow.
and they did.
Wow. Nice low hanging fruit.
Hey,
Oh, if you think that was low-hanging fruit, what about this one? The third one was that Microsoft would announce a new AAA single-player game. Well, they announced Halo Infinite, they announced Gears 5.
Sekiro.
Those aren't single player games. Those are multiplayer games.
I don't know.
They're single player with multiplayer. I mean, yeah. Frankie's got a point. No point. Donut.
Just because
Those are multiplayer games. When he said single player, I think Horizon Zero Dawn.
Sekiro.
No multiplayer
Sekiro was
component.
announced there, though.
It's not an exclusive.
Oh, yeah. 0 points. Sorry, boys. Go ahead, Ben.
I don't know. When I think of Gears, I think of a single-player game.
No,
Just 'cause
Gears
it
is
can
horde
be-
mode.
Just because it can be, it's got a campaign, and you can play it by yourself.
Yeah, but who's talking about the Gears campaign?
I
Nobody.
Am. I played that more than I played multiplayer.
That's 'cause you suck at the
two people
multiplayer.
on this show
You're
talk
not
about
wrong.
Gears.
No point.
Well,
I'd say no point. That's no.
I already gave
Don't
you
let don't let Frankie sway you. Bender.
Somebody's
You're
got to
the
win.
you're the judge here, man. You gotta drop the hammer.
Those are not single player games.
Bender, give him the point and just move
I already
on.
gave him a point. Frankie,
Damn
I'm
it.
sorry.
What
His
a
fourth
dirtbag.
prediction. I told you, everybody yells at Bender. I can never make. I'm just not going to be the judge next year. I can never be.
Say that every year.
Right. but nobody else wants to be in your shoes, so no, nobody's going to take your job. Don't worry.
Okay, so Ben's fourth prediction was that Crackdown 3, Metroid Prime 4, and Final Fantasy 7 would not be there. So close. Crackdown 3 was there.
Thanks, Crackdown.
Finally,
Crackdown.
the PlayStation would show DMC 5, and they would have some sort of exclusivity. It was shown at Microsoft.
Wow. Totally wrong.
Wow.
Failure.
So with 2 points, Ben is the winner this year.
Wow.
Bullshit.
Way to end the show on a downer note.
God, the two lamest
I didn't get any
predictions.
So
Welcome to my world, Bender. It's nice down here, isn't it?
you
Dude,
know.
those are good predictions. man.
No. Oh, these 4 games that Sony said they're going to showcase, they're going to have gameplay.
Hey, we were close on Death Stranding. That was the stretch.
That was a bit.
What a crock.
I honestly wasn't sure if Death Stranding would show any kind of gameplay.
Technically, we didn't. It was just a walking sim. Anyways,
Yeah, and
Predictions.
there's no single player Xbox games that got announced, so
boy,
Thanks,
this will be
Bender.
another contest where Bender will be scrutinized for the next 365 days. Awesome. Can't wait. All
I
right.
have
Uh,
spoken.
just for the record, Bender, I think you did a great job this year. And I think you
Man.
I think you took the bull by the horns here. I mean, you had a tough job. You were more than up to the task. So I appreciate the work that you do.
And if it was me, if I were judging, I would have given you the point for Life is Strange being teased, not given Boyce the point for the Microsoft thing, and then all three of us would be co-champions this year.
Oh, I get it. Screw me,
you can
right?
be judged next year.
You guys are the worst. All right, let's close this thing out. Again, this has been our first ever live episode of the Short Pause Gaming Podcast. This is going to be a work in progress. We enjoyed this. We got to interact with the folks in the chat. We appreciate all of you stopping by. Polykill Podcast just dropped in. Jamie, Gogol, Rick Moody, Jimmy Z, all you guys and girls in the chat. JD was in there. Fear the Beard was in there. We had Noni from over on Twitch. Fez was over there on Twitch. We really, really appreciate you guys and girls stopping by and commenting and talking and sharing your opinions of E3. This is the reason we wanted to go live, because it gives us a chance to interact with you and get your thoughts on things. We're all gamers, so we want to get your thoughts and everything just as much as we want to talk about ours. So we really, really appreciate those of you that stopped by. We will continue to work on this. It'll be a work in progress. Normally we're recorded podcasts, but we're going to be live going forward. You'll be able to check out this podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Google Play, Stitcher, all those places. The audio will be lifted from this. This week it'll be lifted from this, and then next week you'll be back to our typical sounding podcast. So everything should be good there. If you enjoy this podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, write out a nice review, tell us why you like the show. If you're not ready to give us a 5-star review, that's cool. We don't want any fake ones. Head over to the website, www.shortpause.com. Go right into the comments. Let us know your thoughts on the podcast, criticisms, feedback, suggestions, anything. We need to hear from you. If you got to write out something really long, if you want to just trash Bender's scoring system, that's cool. Podcast at Short
Why would
Pause.
you ever want to do that?
Shut up. I'm trying to close this thing out. I'm a sore loser. Podcast at shortpause.com. Send us an email. We want to hear from you. It's the only way this show is going to get better, and we want to make it a show that you never want to miss every single week. The podcast will be live on YouTube, Twitch, Mixer, and our Facebook page. All of those, Short Pause Gaming. Guys, anything else you want to add while we close out our first ever live episode?
I hate you, Bender.
It's been fun, man. It's been a good show.
Yeah, like I said, it'll.
Twitter handles for our live shows.
They're all right beneath our names, but yeah, guys,
right.
where can we find you gaming and tweeting, Mr. Boyce?
As always, Brent, I'll be not tweeting at Piccolo 930. It's my PSN ID. It's where you can find me on the Switch, on the Xbox, all that stuff. Piccolo 930. Indie Spotlight should be returning this Tuesday, by the way. Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eastern. We'll get back on the Indie Spotlight train now that E3 is over, and I'm sure we'll find something cool to play. So be on the lookout for that right here on our YouTube channel.
Mr. Ayler, the newly married Mr. Ayler.
It's true. I am. This is my first show post-marriage, so you can find me on Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, Twitter, Nintendo Switch, at Viper Strike, spelled down below. Follow our friends at Polykill. I hear they're going to have a really cool guest pretty soon.
Oh, man. Can't wait to check that one out. Awesome.
I wonder who that's going to be.
I don't know. Some guy. Probably JD again.
Hopefully not a shitty judge. All
that's,
right.
That's not very cool.
And Mr. Holt.
You can follow me on Twitter at Bender_guitar. You can find me on Xbox Live at MeBender82 and PlayStation Network and Nintendo Network at Me_Bender.
You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Twitter at TheDude1979, Xbox Live, TheRealDude79, PlayStation Network, and the Nintendo Switch, TheDude79. Make sure you visit the website, www.shortpause.com. Follow us on Twitter at TheShortPause. For Mr. Holt, Mr. Ayler, and Mr. Boyce, I'm Brent Felsing. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.